debate in general, and also the three reports which were presented to Parliament by the President when he made the State of the Nation address on 4th April 2019. The President did present the 6th annual report on the measures taken and progress achieved in the realization of national values and principles of governance. The second report was on the progress made in fulfilling the international obligations of the Republic of Kenya, and the third report was on the state of national security. Every year, the President addresses a joint sitting of Parliament, the National Assembly, and the Senate, where he updates the country on this particular progress. So that debate will enter the third and final day. Also in the order of business this afternoon is the second reading of the determination of the nature of bills, procedure bills, Senate Bills number 30 of 2018. This bill is courtesy of the Senator for Makueni County, Senator Mutula Kilonzo Jr., and the Senator for Nairobi County, Senator Johnson Sakaja. The debate on this had already begun before it was interrupted on 3rd April 2019. The Senator Canon Naomi Wakojilo has a motion which, according to the order of business, she will move the realization of the gender equity in elective and appointive positions in Kenya. Aware that the Constitution of Kenya recognizes dignity, economic, social, and cultural rights, education, housing, and the right to health, including reproductive health, and that the principle of equality and non-discrimination is established as a core value of leadership, and the national values and principles of governance include human dignity, equity, social justice, inclusiveness, equality, human rights, non-discrimination, and protection of marginalized groups, among others. The Senator is concerned that women in Kenya experience hardships when it comes to elective offices and are underrated by society, with most opportunities for elective and appointive offices being awarded to men. Now, therefore, the Senate resolves that Parliament fast-track the enactment of the law that shall give effect to the one-third gender rule, and that pursuant to Article 81 of the Constitution, both the national and county governments observe the principle of equality and empowers the female gender by increasing the appointive position to at least 50%. Senator Charles Robinson Kibiru also has a motion in the order of business, and the motion is on the completion of all stalled projects under county government through budgetary management. That aware that Kenya has had a development blueprint of Vision 2030 since 2008, which has guided planning and development for the last decade, with a focus of making Kenya an industrialized middle-income economy with a higher per capita income for its citizens. The Senator is concerned that there are glaring discrepancies in progress made in development among counties, particularly among the 14 devolved functions, caused by lack of accountability, integrity, professionalism, and remaining a blemish on the success of devolution. Now, therefore, the Senate recommends that the National Treasury, in partnership with the Controller of Budget, Commission on Revenue Allocation, the Council of Governors, and the County Assemblies Forum, to ensure that all the county integrated development plans and annual development plans are aligned to Vision 2030 with an implementation, monitoring, and evaluation framework in place, and also address pending bills by prioritizing their payment, creating clear timeframes for payment, and publishing a schedule of payment of the same, and finally prioritize the completion of stalled development projects prior to undertaking of funding new projects. This is a motion that is in the order of business this afternoon. We are waiting for the business of the afternoon to begin. It will begin in a couple of seconds or minutes from now, and there are already senators who have taken their seats, and others are at this moment making their way to the Senate chambers, as you can see. And the broadcast coming to you live from the Senate chambers within the precincts of Parliament in Nairobi. The broadcast brought to you by the Parliamentary Broadcasting Unit, PBU, in conjunction with KBC. So now I will hand you over so that you can follow these proceedings. It is a busy afternoon for the Senate, and the Deputy Speaker of the Senate, Honorable Professor Kithure Kindiki, has stepped into the chambers.
Let us pray. Almighty God, we beseech you to behold with your abundant favor and blessings as your servants whom you have been pleased to call to leadership positions in this republic. We seek your guidance to treat and consider all matters that shall come under our deliberation in so just and faithful a manner as to advance the peace, prosperity, and welfare of our country and of those whose interests you have committed to our charge. Amen.
Order number 1, administration of oath. Order number 2, communication from the chair.
Honorable Senators, I have the following communication to make regarding the 4th Annual Legislative Summit. Honorable Senators, as you are aware, the Annual Legislative Summit is a forum that brings together Kenyan legislatures to deliberate and share experiences in pursuit of the successful implementation of the devolved governance structure. It is a forum that presents a unique platform for positive engagement between the Senate, county assemblies, constitutional commissions, and independent offices, development partners, and relevant intergovernmental institutions. 3 legislative summits have been successfully held annually since 2016. As in the past 3 summits, this year's summit is jointly organized by the Senate and the County Assemblies Forum, in line with our constitutional mandates and the constitutional requirement to conduct our relations on the basis of consultation and cooperation as provided for in Article 6(2) of the Constitution. Honorable Senators, the Legislative Summit 2019 seeks to build on the gains of the previous summits while providing an avenue for Kenyan legislatures to continually interrogate implementation of their roles in the devolved governance structure. The theme of this year's summit is accelerating devolution, accessing the progress, and addressing the gaps in policy and legislation. This year's summit is scheduled to take place from the 13th to 17th April 2019 at the Grand Royal Swiss Hotel, Kisumu County. Departure from Nairobi for senators participating in the pre-summit programs for the youth and persons with disabilities is Friday, 12 April 2019, while departure for all other senators is Saturday, 13th April 2019. Departure from Kisumu is scheduled for Thursday, 18th April 2019. Additional information and logistical arrangements will be given through the office of the clerk. Let me take this opportunity to welcome each one of you to this very important event. I urge you all to prioritize the event and make time to attend and participate in it. Thank you. Order Senators, I have another communication to make. Honorable Senators, I would like to acknowledge the presence in the public gallery this afternoon of visiting students and teachers from St. Teresa's Tartar Girls School, West Pokot County. In our usual tradition of receiving and welcoming visitors to Parliament, I extend a warm welcome to them, and on behalf of the Senate and on my own behalf, wish them a fruitful visit. Thank you. Senator Pogisho, West Pokot County.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Speaker, I'd like to join you and the Senate in welcoming students from one of the best secondary schools in the country, from the great county of West Pokot. Mr. Speaker, this is Tartar Girls. It's a national school. And as you can see, the students are showing here, plus their teachers, that they would like to learn from the Senate and be possible senators themselves in the future, or work in the national county in the Senate in future. I'd like to welcome them and wish them well in Nairobi, and also as they learn more. This is a house of order, it's a house of records, it's a house of leadership, and I hope that to inculcate values to these students. And I also like to appeal to the teachers as you bring up these young people, that they may be able to create the national ethos of this country that we are looking for. I'd like to assure you, Mr. Speaker, that I know the school well. They are my neighbors where I live, and I know that they perform very well. One of the things that outstands from this school is that they are good footballers. And they have a strong football team, these ladies. And they have, this is from that they have represented the country very well outside the country in football and many other sports, but academically very strong. And so I like to assure them that the senator is doing their work here. We don't have any problem when it comes to representation. We will work for you, but also make sure that you don't let us down. And I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. Senator Murkomen.
Mr. Speaker, I'd like to join my neighbor, Senator Lesuron, in welcoming the girls from Tartar Girls. The girls, that's a national school, but I know I have so many students also who come from Elgeyo Marakwet who are in that school. And Mr. Speaker, education is one of the most important tools for equalizing society, because like Nelson Mandela said, it gives an opportunity, child of a person, to meet, Mr. Speaker, those who have grown and brought up in well-to-do families. And so, Mr. Speaker, Tartar Girls is part of the representation of the great things that come from West Pokot County. Most of the time when we talk about West Pokot, Elgeyo Marakwet, Turkana, Samburu, Baringo, we either think about cattle rustling or drought. But Mr. Speaker, that county, West Pokot, other than having one of the most important facilities in Takwel Dam, which has given us consistent electricity in this country, the best dam, and the upcoming, of course, Aurora and Kimwale in the neighborhood. Mr. Speaker, it also has one of the best, Mr. Speaker, best schools and best girls' schools.
Other senators.
And Mr. Speaker, because of that, I think that I am speaking actually today in the spirit of unity that is prevailing between West Pokot and Elgeyo Marakwet, and to demonstrate to the nation that those schools, just to give an example, we went with the Deputy President 3 weeks ago to a school in Tot, where you are familiar, Mr. Speaker, where the children from Pokot and Baringo, which is Tiati constituency, and Elgeyo Marakwet, are schooling in a day school called Tot Secondary School, which now has 1,300 students, up from 41 3 years ago. So education is important. And I believe that if we continue supporting education, we are going to unite this country beyond the lines that we always think about and the stereotypes that are always around, that if someone comes from certain parts of the country, there may be nothing good that comes from there. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. Honorable Senators, we have already welcomed these girls. Senator Olekina, 1 minute. Order.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, sir, I'd like to join you and my colleagues, and especially my good friend, Senator Pogisio, in welcoming the girls from West Pokot. And I'm so glad that the majority leader has spoken about this project called Tarkwel hydropower. I'd like to challenge the girls to ensure that they fight for their rights. Because the last I checked, the West Pokot community and also Turkana, where this power plant, which generates more than 105 megawatts of electricity, we in this country are benefiting. Once it's feeding the national grid, I'd like to encourage these young girls to be able to fight hard to ensure that when they go back, they can be able to ensure that they get access to working in that power plant, you know, so that, and also ensure that their people are benefiting. Because this business whereby we keep on getting resources from somewhere and feeding into the national grid and bypassing the local community should be a thing of the past. So, Mr. Speaker, sir, I welcome them and I challenge them to ensure that they know what resources are available for them and how they can easily benefit from them.
Thank you,
Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. Senator Dulo, 1 minute.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I wish to join my colleagues in welcoming these young girls. Of course, having come from West Pokot, that is a serious commitment, and especially those who are ready to learn. And I'm sure from a pastoral community, having been in secondary school, that is a great opportunity for them, an area that is affected by cattle rustling and so many other challenges. I wish to challenge them to work hard, because this is an opportunity for them. I'm sure there are so many of them who are at home, but you are lucky to be in a national school and be able to work hard and achieve your goals. We wish you all the best, and you are most welcome to the Senate. And I'm sure you have so many role models in this house. One day you should work hard and be in this house. I thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Senators. Thank you very much, and welcome, Tartar girls. Next order.
Order number 3, messages. Order number 4, petitions. Order number 5, papers. Order number 6, notices of motion. Order number 7, statements.
Senator Chaberi.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, sir, I rise pursuant to Standing Order 47-1 to make a statement on a matter of national concern regarding the violence and insecurity in our universities and other institutions of higher learning. Mr. Speaker, sir, the World Health Organization defines violence as the intentional use of physical force or power, threatened or actual, against oneself, another person, or against a group or community, which either results in or has a high likelihood of resulting to injury, death, psychological harm, maldevelopment, or deprivation. Aware that Article 29C of our Constitution inherently articulates the rights of a person not to be subjected to any form of violence from either public or private sources, further aware that Article 26.1 clearly outlines every person's right to life, violence in our universities and other institutions of higher learning has assumed a formidable dimension that not only requires a multi-sector approach, but also necessitates a revival and reinforcement of moral values and virtues. We have witnessed cases that include physical violence, sexual violence, threats of physical or sexual violence, emotional violence, and stalking, among others. Mr. Speaker, sir, universities and other institutions of higher learning face increasingly complex and urgent security requirements. Due to insecurity, the universities and other institutions of higher learning are no longer viewed as safe and secure environments in which students can learn, enjoy themselves, and feel protected. Learners are forced to gamble between death and obtaining their degrees. Young men and women have either been reported murdered or have committed suicide within those institutions. There have been numerous reports on television and print media highlighting the escalation of this problem. Mr. Speaker, sir, since October last year, Jomo Kenyatta University of Agriculture and Technology has lost around 4 students. Mr. Speaker, this trend has increased so much that students are living in constant fear. The trend is very worrying and the statistics are disturbing. Something must be done now to curb the situation. We must find out why our young men and women resort to committing suicide or homicide. The latest being the gruesome murder of Ivy Wangeshi, a 6th-year medical student from Moi University. This represents the latest inhuman act targeted at students in our institutions of higher learning. I note with concern that this crime was committed in broad daylight. I hope that the Director of Criminal Investigations will get to the bottom of this matter and bring the culprit to justice. It is very sad that such promising young person whose contribution as a doctor after her graduation would have been invaluable to our nation and her life cut short in such a heinous manner. Mr. Speaker, sir, security is a management issue for all higher education institutions. The universities and institutions of higher learning should put in place proper security measures to ensure students are guaranteed of their safety within the university and its environs. Mr. Speaker, sir, I urge this House to do more to raise awareness on violence in our universities and institutions with a view to making sure that the security apparatus in the country, in collaboration with universities management and other institutions of higher learning, work together to eliminate this trend. I thank you.
What is it, Senator Wetangula? you on a point of order or you want to make observations? Then you should have said so. Proceed, Senator Wetangula. You said point of order.
Mr. Speaker, sometimes it does appear that that's the only way you can get quick attention from the chair when you want to say
Then
something.
you have succeeded.
Mr. Speaker, I want to thank Senator Chebeni from my county, who has made a very fundamental statement. Mr. Speaker, it's becoming very worrisome, the manner in which people are taking away other people's lives in this country. Mr. Speaker, you may remember there's a friend of mine called Jose Akili. He works for Lab Trust. His daughter, who was in third year in the university, was brutally murdered, and the murder was linked to a person who was then a governor, and it just disappeared. Mr. Speaker, we have seen the grisly murder in Eldoret 2 days ago, where a person who can only be deranged can walk with an axe and hack a woman to death on the pretext that she has been a lover and she had jilted him. Mr. Speaker, we have had so many murders of students. It was listed in the newspaper, I think yesterday or today, close to 10 students. The case of Sharon is still very, very fresh in our minds, Madam Mr. Speaker, where a girl, pregnant, is bastardized and beastly murdered, including knifing the fetus in the body. Mr. Speaker, all these things are happening because of the moral decay in our society. At the university during our days, Mr. Speaker, I don't know if you found a certain Professor Dondas, who was a priest at St. Paul's. Professor Dondas used to spend a lot of time and energy counseling students on what the do's and don'ts of life should be. Mr. Speaker, this particular problem, we blame it on the institutions for not looking after their students well, on the parents for not counseling their students, parents for not looking after their students, parents send their students to university and leave them to the hands of greedy men who give them money, and when they are done with them, they abandon them. And the girls find it very difficult even to cope with their own peers. Mr. Speaker, I think we need a moral reawakening in this country. And I want to urge, Mr. Speaker, as I come to my conclusion, the institutions that are supposed to be custodians of morality, churches, mosques. These days, Mr. Speaker, churches and mosques are also just beehives of financial activities. They rarely, Mr. Speaker, deal with issues of morality with our children. When you go to church, the highest loudest cheers you get is when you say you have brought them money. Nobody, Mr. Speaker, is talking about getting on the beaten track. And I want to urge, Mr. Speaker, the enforcement agencies of the law, the DCI, even as we allowed the DCI for his war on corrupt practices in the country, the DPP, and everybody else, that they must now pay attention to this scourge of brutal and grisly murders of students, particularly female students, who appear to be a large number of victims in this whole charade. Mr. Speaker, society is going astray, and we all have a duty to our society to bring it back to where it should be. Thank you.
Senator Iman. Oh, Senator Faria, sorry. Senator Faria.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for allowing me to contribute to this statement. Mr. Speaker, since I didn't get an opportunity also to welcome the Tartar Girls High School, I wish to join you in welcoming them. And I want to advise them to have confidence, hard work, integrity, discipline, And those are the things that pay eventually as in our lives. In terms of also, there have been rampant examination cheating. Please be aware, that is not the way to pass the exam. The way to pass exams is to work hard. Mr. Speaker, let me come back to the statement at heart that I'm contributing to. I wish to thank Senator Chebeni also for bringing this statement, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I mean, I can imagine the parent of Wangeshi, Mr. Speaker. 6 years in medical school, and someone reckless just hacks her to death. What kind of society are we raising, Mr. Speaker? Mr. Speaker, it pains me so much sometimes. We deliberate some of these issues in this House, but after our deliberation, then what happens, Mr. Speaker? Because all this talking needs to translate to some action, Mr. Speaker. I think maybe we need to have an implementation committee so that there is a constant committee to follow up on this issue, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, there is Sharon also who lost her life, including her fetus. Mr. Speaker, how long will the mothers of this country grieve because of their children being murdered and their children, committing suicide because a child has, their marks were low in school? I think we need to reevaluate ourselves as society in terms of what is best for us. And if there is issues that we need to deal with, I think we need to address, because these things cannot continue, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, these gruesome murders 2 days ago, the man who committed that murder had even audacity to explain himself why he murdered her, armed himself all the way into her school, a girl who is in her school, and being murdered in her own school, university, Mr. Speaker. Surely this is a very, very painful thing, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, we need some level of protection in our schools, Mr. Speaker, including security in terms of our gates. 2015, we had over 140 students losing their lives, Moi University in Garissa. Is our university even right now prepared to rebut such an eventuality, Mr. Speaker? Because if it has happened once, it can happen again, Mr. Speaker. In terms of being awareness and preparedness of terror or any other insecurity in our institution of higher learning, Mr. Speaker. Who is taking care of that, Mr. Speaker? I thank Senator Chebeni for bringing this statement, Mr. Speaker. I thank you for allowing me to contribute.
I see a lot of interest also, but we are again constrained. I'll give maybe, let's see. Senator Shionga, 2 minutes, I can't see her. Senator Shionga? 2 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir, for giving me this opportunity to contribute to the statement. Mr. Speaker, sir, it is very disturbing when you wake up in the morning and you hear reports and alarming reports, not just reports, alarming reports of deaths of our children in our higher learning institute. Mr. Speaker, sir, I want to thank our able senator who has brought up this statement, and I am urging that our security in the Higher Learning Institute, beef up the security in this institute, because we are investing in our children and we really want to see the produce from our children. We want to see our children see their children. And it's very, very disturbing when you hear, when you wake up in the morning and you hear that your child has been killed without even knowing. I really want to support the senators who have said that moral efforts should be put into our children, should be taught how to come up with, to know how the circumstances that are surrounding the dangers in their lives. So it is my urge that the DCIO, in this case, the director of investigation goes to the bottom of this matter and save the lives of our children. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir.
Thank you. The senators, I would like to acknowledge the presence in the public gallery this afternoon of visiting students and teachers from High Vision Junior School, Isiolo County. In our usual tradition of receiving and welcoming visitors to Parliament, I extend a warm welcome to them, and on behalf of the Senate and on my own behalf, wish them a fruitful visit. Thank you. Senator Cheragai. And then after that, I'll give the Senator for Isiolo an opportunity to welcome students from our county.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. I want to join you also to welcome students from Isiolo County and wish them well. And also, I meant to understand that Tartar girls were here. Mr. Speaker, sir, my elder sister is the principal, Madam Consolata Tum is the principal of Tartar girls in West Pokot. And I hope Senator Pogisho is taking good care of her. Secondly, I want to agree that for some of us, I want to say that the rising cases of insecurity in the universities and institutions of higher learning is very, very alarming, and I hope the investigative agencies, I hope the various university councils and the Senate that run these institutions must come up with proactive measures. I remember in Moi University, as being one of the university professor, the speaker, you have been a distinguished lecturer and a renowned evangelist around that place of Moi University before you joined and ventured into politics. You know very well that there are so many challenges, especially in security issues from that area. You know, many people don't know that you are an evangelist, but you'll tell them sometimes, Speaker. So those are challenges that we want our children who are in campus, colleges,
I can hear Senator Wetangula quietly disputing, or is it Senator Kaniri?
No, but the Bible says we are surrounded by the cloud of witnesses. Some of us were witnesses of your evangelistic work in the North Rift. So I want to emphasize, Mr. Speaker, sir, as I conclude, that we need the universities and the management that run some of these institutions must come together with DCI. And Mr. Speaker, sir, we now want to challenge the DCI to step in and tell us what is really happening, that we are experiencing a lot of insecurity, especially in our institutions of higher learning.
Thank you,
so we
Senator.
stand with their families and condole with they have lost their loved one, and we...
Thank you, Senator Fatuma Duro.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I wish to take this opportunity to welcome students from Isiolo County, and I wish to congratulate the teachers to have taken this opportunity and also serious commitment to bring these students to Nairobi and witness what Parliament is doing. Mr. Speaker, this is a very, very serious school that is really working hard, and I'm sure I must congratulate the school and the teachers to have committed themselves to have come all this far in the name of actually getting experience and also learning. This is a very good opportunity for you, students from Isiolo. I'm sure you are the leaders of tomorrow, and I hope your trip is going to be very fruitful. You will be able to carry back home whatever you have learned from here. We wish you most welcome in Nairobi and also in the chamber. We'll be able to interact maybe after this session.
Thank you. Thank you, Senator Dulo. Senator Olekina, 2 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. Mr. Speaker, sir, first I would like to join you and my colleagues in welcoming the students from Isiolo and encourage them to continue coming. And I thank the school for really giving these students an opportunity to see what happens in this house. Mr. Speaker, sir, I rise to support the statement by Senator Chebeni on this issue of the trouble in our universities. My take, Mr. Speaker, sir, and this is a problem that I've seen coming here, is that recently we debated a motion on mental illness, which was brought by one of my colleagues. And I think that is where we need now to encourage these universities to try and bring in a new mentoring facility within the institutions. Because this issue of being jilted to a point where you leave one place and you go and attack another person and take their life is something that we can be able to really help our children cope with. Mr. Speaker, sir, the issue of love is something which is very complicated, that very few people understand. And I think since all of us have grown through that process of where someone does not want to be with you, you really feel emotionally challenged, and it sort of like affects your mental capacity. So, Mr. Speaker, sir, I would like to call upon all our universities to try and invest a lot of resources in helping young students cope with challenges that they go through, either psychologically. You know, people have a lot of issues. And Mr. Speaker, sir, if, let's say, the person who you thought loved you left you, then you come up with this mentality: if I cannot be with you, then no one else can be with you. So I would like to encourage all the universities, and particularly the current CS of education, to try and invest a lot in mentoring, to try and deal with this issue of mental illness in our universities. And thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir.
Next statement, Senator Sakaja.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I really wanted to comment on the earlier one, but I will move to mine. Mr. Speaker, person to Standing Order 47.1, I rise to make a statement on the protection of rights and welfare of Uber and other hailing cabs drivers. Mr. Speaker, there have been numerous complaints from drivers operating in this sector in terms of their welfare and the losses that they're making. It is high time this House looked keenly and very seriously onto these issues, because some of these drivers are losing their lives, while others are going into depression, and the country is not gaining any revenue from these companies that are indirectly practicing modern-day slavery within our borders, Mr. Speaker. The hailing cab companies, Mr. Speaker, and for the information of the House, have reduced our drivers to slaves, our young people. This is quite unfortunate and a contravention of our Constitution under Article 41 on labor relations, which stipulates that all workers have a right to fair labor practices, fair remuneration, and reasonable working conditions. According to several testimonies, and I've had several meetings with these drivers of various hailing cabs, Uber, Taxify, Little Cab, etc. The drivers have to work extremely long hours just to make a basic living, with some taking home less than the average minimum wage after paying the running costs. An average driver works for 80+ hours a week, with a take-home of about 8,000 shillings per month. The drivers are subjected to ceaseless toil under conditions that are injurious to the health and pose a danger to the public at large. Majority of these drivers have taken loans to finance their vehicles and are left with no option but to work for long and safe hours in order to be able to service the loans and to at least feed their families. This has led to an increase in the number of road accidents on our roads, Mr. Speaker. Those who have defaulted have had their vehicles auctioned and thus have been rendered jobless, Mr. Speaker. 1 week ago, it was reported in the dailies that more than 2,500 vehicles were auctioned by 2 local banks for failure to service the loans. What is interesting to note, Mr. Speaker, is that those who come to buy those cars in those auctions put them back into the same service, thus causing a vicious cycle. The fares being charged, Mr. Speaker, by these hailing cabs companies are extremely low and below the minimum rates prescribed by the Automobile Association and by the government. And the commissions taken are too high, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, as soon as a customer pays an Uber, 25% immediately goes to the Netherlands, to the company there, and nothing comes to our country, Mr. Speaker. There has to be a balance on how the pricing is done so that the driver, the customer, and these companies benefit, and in order to avoid exploitation of either party. We need to have set standards, and that's why we have a competition authority on the minimum allowable rates to be charged across the taxi industry, and these charges should factor in other 9 hailing cabs. In other countries, Mr. Speaker, we have cabs that are metered, as is a practice all over the world, to count and charge customers justly. Once this is done, it will harmonize and regulate the industry to ensure fair competition. We have seen these cabs pushing other sectors of the transport industry out of business. When a minimum rate is 150 shillings, that means those who are in border, those who are driving tuk-tuks can never get a client, Mr. Speaker. In other jurisdictions, Mr. Speaker, legislative measures have been put in place to hold these companies accountable to higher standards in regard to labor relations and to ensure people are not exploited, Mr. Speaker. These companies must also be made to pay their fair share of taxes to our government. In many jurisdictions, as soon as you enter these vehicles, an amount goes directly to the tax authorities and to the local authorities. It is possible, it has been done. We must protect the more than 15,000 drivers, many of whom are in Nairobi County and in Mombasa County. And as the chair of the Standing Committee on Labour and Social Welfare, Mr. Speaker, will be tabling a motion as soon as we come back from recess, if so moved by the House, to ensure this issue is dealt with conclusively, Mr. Speaker. It's a serious issue. It needs our attention. Our drivers are bleeding, and they're not able to earn a living from this hailing cabs, Mr. Speaker. Thank you.
Thank you. Senator Msuruve. 3 minutes.
Mr. Speaker, sir, thank you very much for catching your attention and giving me the opportunity to give my comments. Mr. Speaker, first of all, I want to actually join you in welcoming the girls from West Pokot who came
This
to the
is
house.
about Uber. Senator Msuruve.
Mr. Speaker, sir.
And the girls are gone. Anyway.
The girls are gone, but Mr. Speaker, sir, I wanted to comment on that.
This is, okay, then this, you are supposed to now give observations on the statement by the Senator for Nairobi County, and therefore, perhaps you will do so next time. Because the girls are gone. Senator Wetangula.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I want to join the distinguished senator for Nairobi in the statement that he has made. Mr. Speaker, I recently took an Uber taxi from the airport to... Mr. Speaker, the young man driver talked to me until he shed his tears. The conditions under which they work, the paltry income that they get, and the molestation and terror they get from financial institutions that finance their vehicles. What the distinguished senator has not addressed, Mr. Speaker, and what the committee chairs should deal with is who are the local accomplices of Uber. Because Uber didn't just walk into Kenya. The money that is earned from Uber at the expense of these slaving drivers goes to Uber International and some local accomplices. Those are the slave drivers. Mr. Speaker, this Senate must rise to the occasion and protect our people. Out of desperation, Mr. Speaker, and because of the hopeless situation of employment in the country, people pick and jump on anything and eventually end up suffering immensely. We were recently, Mr. Speaker, in the US with, among others, Senator Fatuma Dulo and I think somebody else. And we met some young man from Elgeyo Marakwet who is settled in the US, driving a taxi, and he told me he wrecks home up to $15,000 to $20,000 every 3 weeks. And here we are talking of people earning 8,000 shillings a month after leaving everything to drive an Uber. This Senate must set standards. This Senate must drive out slave drivers from our employment market. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Chilayako.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me an opportunity to make a few remarks regarding the statement given by Super Senator Sakaja of Nairobi. Now, Mr. Speaker, every worker, every person who toils is entitled to fair wages and fair working conditions. And it is true that our unfortunate citizens who are desperate for employment and who toil in ungodly hours and ungodly time are paid a paltry amount of money. Mr. Speaker, this is an issue that is worthy of our interest. This is an issue that touches on social and employment rights of these young persons. They are largely young persons who should be doing better than what they are doing. So, Mr. Speaker, I want to thank the Senator for Nairobi, who has been a very ardent and passionate supporter of young people, for thinking about our unfortunate brothers and sisters who drive Uber. And I want to encourage the committee, before which this matter will be taken, to take this matter seriously. We cannot allow other people from other countries that have minimum wages. If you go to the US, they are minimum wages. If you are in UK, they are minimum wages, to come and exploit our people here in the name of offering services. Mr. Speaker, I beg to support.
Thank you, Senator Olekina.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. Once again, I rise to support this statement by Senator Sakaja. And Mr. Speaker, sir, I am really shocked. In this country, we talk about our Kenya Revenue Authority not being able to collect enough taxes for this government. Yet, when you look at the models of operators of Uber, in the UK, for instance, Mr. Speaker, sir, there is a company called Uber BV. When you travel with an Uber, you're given a receipt. And the receipt, below it, there is Uber BV, which is Uber Dutch. And in the Netherlands, any entrepreneur who carries out business outside the country, their VAT is 0%. Mr. Speaker, sir, of course, Uber would want to come into this country, ensure that they collect all the revenue they can collect. The 25% goes to the Netherlands, because there they continue benefiting. They don't pay any taxes. So it is sad that our Kenyan drivers, who pay a lot of taxes, and this country, if we really care about businesses, we should really be caring about these small businesses, but not, foreign enterprises that come in. We talk about foreign direct investment, but in this case, this is actually killing our economy. You cannot have a taxi driver talk to you about the challenges they go through, the little amount of money that they get. I was sad, Mr. Speaker, sad to see all these Suzuki, which the first time I entered a new Suzuki, being driven by a small Uber driver, he said, look, now I can afford to have a car. But 2 weeks later, they're auctioned. So, Mr. Speaker, sir, in fact, I would like to encourage Senator Sakaja to bring a motion, because this is not something we're just going to talk about it. We have to be able to pronounce ourselves in this House. And the only way we can pronounce ourselves in this House is by us adopting a motion to either suspend the operation of Uber in this country, or impose a tax, or ensure that we change the models of operators. Because we cannot allow, we are a country which is in debt. We have a lot of debt that we cannot be able to service. So KRA, if KRA wants to be able to help this country, Mr. Speaker, sir, they must be able to push forward on this issue of corporate tax. We cannot be allowing our young Kenyans to continue paying the income tax, yet foreign businesses coming to operate here go without paying any taxes. Mr. Speaker, sir, finally, we've got the technology. If you look at one of our institutions here, one of the universities in this country, it has produced young Kenyans who are very good in technology. Why not come up with our own app that can be able to map out the entire streets of Kenya, so that we can be able to provide a service similar to that of Uber? So, Mr. Speaker, sir, I support this statement, and I hope that Senator Sakaja can be able to come up with a motion so that this House can pronounce itself. I thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir.
Senator Msuruve, conclude for us.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me the opportunity. I want to commend Senator Sakaja for coming up with this statement. And Mr. Speaker, employment is an issue in this country. And quite a number of people, especially our youths, are not employed. And taxi driving and Uber driving is a very good source of employment. And Mr. Speaker, most of our youths, you'll find them young people, you'll find them getting into this kind of employment, and it is a very good way of them earning a living. Mr. Speaker, you'll find that instead of youth being idle, instead of trying to look for jobs elsewhere and they don't get, it can be a self-sustaining way of our youth getting employment. But Mr. Speaker, even though we want our youth to get employment, we do not want a situation where our youth are also exploited, Mr. Speaker. Because if for example, one is an Uber driver and gets 8,000 per month, Mr. Speaker, it would be very difficult for that person to make some savings, that person to pay rent, that person to bring food on the table, that person to even have a family. So, Mr. Speaker, this is a statement that is of great concern, and it is a statement that should go very far. It should go into, become, yes, a motion. It can even translate into a bill, Mr. Speaker, so that we come up with policies and laws that govern how, Uber drivers can be treated. Mr. Speaker.
Conclude.
Mr. Speaker, and even when you're saying that companies, these companies, get commission from the Uber driving, Mr. Speaker, this is also uncalled for, because if they get very high commissions, then the Uber drivers may not see value for the job, because they'll not be able to organize, to save some money and organize themselves even for their future. So, Mr. Speaker, I want to say that I actually support this statement.
Please conclude, Senator Musuruve. We are not debating emotion. You're making observations.
So I support this statement by Senator Sakaja, and I encourage him to go to the next level.
Thank you. Thank you very much, honorable senators. I would like to acknowledge the presence in the public gallery this afternoon of visiting students and teachers from Kenya Navy Primary School, Mombasa County. In our usual tradition of receiving and welcoming visitors to Parliament, I extend a warm welcome to them. And on behalf of the Senate and on my own behalf, wish them a fruitful visit. Thank you. Senator Mwinyi, can you welcome the students on behalf of the rest of us?
Asante Mheshimiwa Spika kwa kunipa fursa hii kuwakaribisha wanafunzi kutoka shule ya msingi ya Kenya Navy Mtongwe Mombasa. Kwa hakika ni furaha adhuhuri ya leo kupokea wageni kama hawa kutoka Mombasa, na natumai kwamba watakapokuwa hapa wataweza kujifunza mengi ambayo yanafanyika, hususan mambo yanayofanyika katika bunge la Senate. Nachukua fursa hii kuwakaribisha na karibuni tena, mjifikie mko nyumbani. Asanteni.
Thank you. Very brief, straight to the point. Leader of Majority. Statement under 52(1).
Mr. Speaker, I'd like to make a statement, or my statement, pursuant to Standing Orders 52(1). I hereby present to the Senate the business of the House for the week commencing Tuesday, 14th May 2019, pursuant to the resolution of the Senate adopted on 14th February 2019. On the Senate calendar, the House will proceed on a 31-day recess beginning today at the rise of the House. In this regard, the Senate Business Committee has not scheduled any business for next week. Upon resumption of sittings on Tuesday, 14th May 2019, the Senate Business Committee will meet on that day to schedule the business of the Senate. Honorable Senators, subject to further directions by the Senate Business Committee, the Senate will consider bills scheduled for the second reading, and those are the Committee of the Whole. And on Tuesday, 14th May 2019, the Senate will also continue with the consideration of business that will not be concluded in today's order paper. On Wednesday, 15th May and Thursday, 16th May 2019, the Senate will consider business that will not be concluded on Tuesday and any other business scheduled by the Senate Business Committee. Honorable Senators, I wish to commend you for the commitment you have shown so far. However, there are several bills before the House at second reading and Committee of the Whole stages. There are also a number of statements and petitions pending before Senate standing committees. I urge the respective standing committees to ensure that the process of consideration of the said business is expedited during this recess period and table reports on them upon resumption of sittings in May. Honorable Senators, the Senate is scheduled to participate in the Legislative Summit 2019 in Kisumu County. I appeal to all Senators to plan to attend this important event in our calendar of events as earlier communicated by the Speaker. In conclusion, Mr. Speaker, sir, allow me to take this opportunity to wish senators a happy Easter holiday as you take time to reconnect with your families, friends, and constituents, and as also you remember the most important event in the Christian family. I thank you and hereby lay the statement on the table of the House. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Very well. Next order.
Order number 8, motion, debate on the address by His Excellency the President, third and last day.
Senator Shionga, you had the floor last time when debate was interrupted, and you have 8 minutes remaining.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir, for giving me this opportunity again to contribute to the address of His Excellency in his speech to the state of the nation. Mr. Speaker, sir, I have 4 areas that I would wish to speak when it comes to the address of His Excellency. The first, I would like to touch on the address on devolution. Mr. Speaker, sir, as the President or His Excellency stated that devolution remains one of the best things that we have ever achieved in the country or as a country since 2013. And hence, 1.7 trillion shillings have been transferred to the county. Mr. Speaker, sir, I would like to say that it is the highest time that these funds that go to the county, we need to have counter check and find whether these funds dispersed to our counties and to respective lower levels are doing the work that are intended to, or that they are doing the services that our people are dispersed to see. Mr. Speaker, sir, I acknowledge 1.7 trillion shillings is not little money. Neither it is not just funds that are to be misused. But we need to empower this House so that this House, when we are getting such a money rolled to our counties, do its work. We need to empower this House to get its monitoring and evaluation funds so that we can go down there, because this House, it is through the Constitution that it is supposed to oversee and counter-check what these funds or what the counties are doing. So it is my encouragement that devolution, as much as we are seeing it receiving funds through the counties, let us have these funds do the work and the services that is intended. And also, I would like, Mr. Speaker, to say that delay of these funds is what is hampering service delivery in our devolved system. So I would wish to encourage and to thank the President when he talks about devolution being achieved, that the required systems that are supposed to transfer these funds to the lower level do facilitate these funds timely to the required level, so that the counties or the people who are mandated by serving our people do not incur unnecessary penalties when they use these funds in the shortest time that these funds are dispersed. Another thing I would like to talk about is that I would like to continuously thank our President when he talks about corruption. This is my second time to hear or to listen to the President's speech. He has never missed talking about corruption. Our medias have never missed talking about corruption. But corruption is continuously happening. I want to say that the president should not dare to talk about corruption. And the head of states, when highlighting about corruption, it is indeed an obstacle. And it stands in the way of Kenya achieving its intended mandate when it comes to funds and when it comes to projects that we intend to achieve as a country. Mr. Speaker, sir, corruption kills more people than disease and war combined. It sucks drugs out of our hospitals, and endangers the security of our nation. This kitu kidogo on our borders that we hear always, it is because of corruption. We encourage our head of state to deal with these people, to deal with those people who are corrupt in our ministries, in our cabinet, in our devolved counties, and anywhere that corrupt seems to be taking roots. And if possible, we need to pass a bill. If you are found stealing what doesn't belong to you, if not being scooped, then you need to go away. And going away, you know what I mean. You just be finished. We do not encourage people to steal. Always we are crying as a country that money is being fizzled away, and we are continuing singing. Is it a lullaby? No. We need to have policies that need to go down with these people, and we need to erase this chapter completely from our country. Corruption kills development. Corruption kills our people. Corruption erodes the dignity of our country. I would also like to talk about the economy. Our president talked about broad economy, which has engaged 5.6, over 5.6 in the last 5 years. And economy where a country is experiencing, Madam Speaker, economy where a country is experiencing drought. Economy where a country, its people are dying. And we are saying that the economy is growing. I'm encouraged to hear that the economy is growing. But is it true that the economy is growing evenly across the country? Is it true that economy, if it is growing, it is affecting all people in the country positively? I reserve my comments, but I would like to applaud the country for making its economy grow. But it is the highest time that the country witness evenly distributed economic growth across the country. Because when people are dying, when we have drought, when people are saying that they have supplied food and other services to Kenyans who are dying, then who are these people that we are talking about that they are dying? I thank the president because, yes, the economy has grown, but let it grow evenly. Madam Speaker, sir, Madam Speaker, not
up. Your time is up. Senator, your time is up. Senator Lokorio Petronila Were. Senator, there is a point of order from Senator Iman.
Madam Chair, yesterday the chair then allowed me to start. He gave me priority to start today after Senator Shionga finished her 8 minutes.
Thank you. Yes, that's noted. So, Senator Iman Falhada Deko.
Thank you, Madam Chair. First of all, I want to thank us, the way we carried ourselves to the other house when we had double sit-up, whatever they call it, and we carried ourselves. This house really shows how mature we are. And when we went there, we looked like matured, carried ourselves and made to our seats. but the other house were really jeering like they've seen their favorite teacher on the corridor. I compliment ourselves how we carried there. Thank you so much. I want to add my voice and contribute to the speech of the president. He talked about the Big Four agenda. On progress of the Big Four agenda, Madam Chair, the president stated some of the achievements his administration has made to ensure the success of the 4 pillars. President Kenyatta urged Parliament to fast-track mediation of the Land Value Index laws, amendment bill, the Physical Planning Bill, the Irrigation Bill, the Warehouse Receipt System Bill, and the Kenyan Road Bill. Therefore, it's our role as senators to ensure these bills are delivered at our sessions. He talked about the economy. The president spoke confidently of the economy. His remarks coming after analysts said the rise in the cost of living is expected to moderate further due to continued fall in food prices that should cancel out any inflationary effects on high fuel prices. He described the economy as strong and said it is expected to grow by 6.3% in 2019 with improvements in execution of the Big Four. And His Excellency also spoke about devolution. On devolution, the president stated the program has his administration's full support and that with Parliament's help, it has changed the people's life. We Senate are the body mandated to supervise devolution. Therefore, we should put more effort in ensuring devolution never fails. And he talks about cohesion between both houses. Like I said, Madam Chair, as Senates, we are more mature than National Assembly because that shows when we went to the House, when we had the joint sitting, when the President was presenting his speech, you've seen how matured we are and how the other House was behaving, as if they were like kids in a candy shop. So the President clearly stated the importance of both houses to his administration. He stated clearly the roles each house must play in order for him to achieve the promises he made to Kenyans, which are captured in the Big Four agenda. Therefore, it is paramount for both houses to work jointly as they seek to achieve improving the people's life. Madam Chair, and the President also talked about housing. President Kenyatta stated his plans for the affordable housing program, including the promulgation of the affordable housing development framework guidelines. The President stated that over 175,000 Kenyans have already registered under the voluntary scheme known as Boma Yangu, providing affordable housing in a key priority for the President's legacy. As of 4th April 2019, there were 186,256 registered applicants. While this is 11,000 more people, it is over 175,000. And this indicates the President's eagerness and strives in achieving the promises he made to the people of Kenya during the presidential campaign. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Senator Lokorio Petronila Were.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for the opportunity to react to the State of the Nation address given by His Excellency the President, Honorable Uhuru Kenyatta. Madam Speaker, I would like to start off by thanking the President coming to the House and therefore recognizing the people's representatives who are members of Parliament, and that if there were any emotions shown on that day by members, they actually show or reflect emotions of the people that he leads. The President told us that the economy is growing at 6%, and by the end of 2019, it will be growing at 6.3%. But many people are asking, where is the evidence of this growth? we are not feeling the growth of the economy, and the president therefore needs to focus on the microeconomics of this country so that the people we lead, the Wanjikos, the Nafulas, can feel that this economy is growing. As it is now, everyone thinks that we are moving at a very bad pace and that the economy is actually, in the real sense, not growing. One good thing the president talked about corruption. He said that we no longer have vigilante justice, that even as we fight corruption, we shall continue to follow the law so that even those who are mentioned are, the laws of natural justice are followed. That was commendable, and therefore urge all the institutions concerned in fighting corruption to follow that and do their work as expected. The president in his speech also recognized that Kenyans are very hardworking people in various disciplines. I want to join him in congratulating Peter Tabichi, who was declared the Global Teacher of the Year, and Eliud Kipchoge, the fastest marathoner. This shows that Kenyans are hardworking people and very resilient, and as leaders, we should never let them down. As Senate, we are the protectors of counties and their governments, and therefore the devolution story. And the president said devolution is on course and moving on as expected. We are doing much, much better in just 6 years of devolution compared to other established democracies. And we are an example in Africa on how devolution ought to go. President Uhuru Kenyatta is one president who has been the midwife of this transition in governance, and the success of devolution will be a defining moment for the president's legacy. So he should make sure that we don't lose focus on as far as devolution is concerned, and Senate, as the protectors of devolution, are given that recognition even by the executive at the national level. He recognized that both houses are doing a good job in passing bills, and I urge the president not to assent to any bill that has not passed through the Senate, because as the Supreme Court ruling gave us direction that all Kenyans belong to a county. Therefore, it's difficult to state that a particular matter does not affect counties, and therefore there should always be a question of, has Senate gone through this before ascending to any of those bills? The president also said they have passed a number of international protocols. Of interest to me is the East African Community Protocol on Cooperation in Meteorological Services. We applaud the executive for having done that, because we are people from the same environment and therefore experience the same effects of climate and of weather. So if we have a common approach to those issues, then it has been long overdue. I would also like to applaud the government for the use of the ID or the identification card for East Africans. This has eased movement and therefore eased business, especially for those who come from border towns. Just the use of the ID, before it was difficult. And now the success of this, of the East African cooperation, therefore now remains in dealing with the non-tariff barriers that make the cooperation not successful. We look forward to a political cooperation, even as we succeed in these other forms of cooperation. The president told us also that Vision 2030 is on course, and in this midterm break of the Vision 2030, they are dwelling on the 4-point agenda, which is agriculture, food security, therefore, health, manufacturing, and housing. But I would like to focus on two, agriculture and health, which are devolved functions, and urge that the executive make sure that these functions are followed by funds, that the funds that belong to these sectors of health and agriculture that are stuck at the parent ministries should be released so that these functions are achieved. If you want to talk about housing, for example, you must deal with the issues of land. Where do counties come in the administration of land? How do we handle that? If you're talking about manufacturing and how it's going to create jobs, how do you involve counties? We should encourage, or the executive should encourage, the setting up of cottage industries, so that will also reduce rural-urban migration that has put a lot of strain on the towns and cities to which people migrate to. When it comes to health issues, which is a devolved function, I still would like the executive to make sure that the Ministry of Health releases funds meant for the health function. For example, and make sure that these funds are ring-fenced. For example, on the issues of immunization. Right now, we are facing high mortality rates of infants and high mortality rates of pregnant mothers, maternal health. These funds should go to the counties so that those particular functions like immunization and child health, maternal health are handled by counties as is required. So that when we talk about universal health coverage, we tackle the issue of maternal and child health as a beginning. Once we sort that out, universal health care becomes achievable in the shortest term possible. Because once we sort out the health of a mother and the child, then we have dealt with 90% of health problems. And I would like to also indicate that the issue of security, now we were talking about this afternoon, the issues of security in our institutions of higher learning. I request that the executive deals with this issue to make sure that police stations are stationed in universities, inside the universities, and even if it's not inside, around the universities, so that our children who go to these universities feel safe, both within the university and its environs, and also encourage the administrations of these universities through the deans of students to set up proper guidance and counseling mechanisms so that we reduce the kind of violence we are seeing in our institutions of higher learning. Otherwise, with those few remarks, Madam Speaker, I want to thank the President for adhering to this constitutional obligation of presenting the State of Nation address to Parliament. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Ndwika Peter Njeru and Senator Sakaja. Did you press intervention or you pressed to contribute? I think you are pressed both.
Thank you. Yes,
Okay.
I was on an intervention earlier, Madam Speaker, but it has been overtaken by events. The person I was correcting is no longer on the floor.
Oh, thank you. Okay, Senator Ndwika Njeru.
I thank you, Madam Speaker, for giving me this opportunity to add my voice to the motion to recount the thanks of the Senate to the speech of President last week. Madam Speaker, the speech was very good. I wish to compliment the President for a good expose of public policy in that speech. Madam Speaker, a lot of things came out that the country was informed of the development that have taken place in all sectors of our economy. Madam Speaker, while we applaud the government for good performance in the macro sector, it is disheartening, like most of my colleagues have said and contributed since day before yesterday, that this growth at most is not being felt by the common Kenyan. And the reason that this growth is not being felt by the common Kenyan is perhaps because as a government, we need to look at certain policies
that guide our operations and our modus operandi, particularly in the manufacturing sector. Madam Speaker, I do not know whether you know, we are the only country in the world where we allow foreigners to come and invest, and they can own 100% of whatever it is that they want to do here. And that explains, Madam Speaker, why in all sectors, in all corners of this nation, you will find all manner of fellows doing things that are meant to be done or can adequately be done by locals. Madam Speaker, if you go to China today, there is no way you can start a business and own it 100%. You'll be required to get a Chinese who you own 50% and you own 45%. In the neighboring countries, it is exactly the same. How are we going to grow our SMEs? We can proudly say that we have big fellows who have who have invested in this country and are assembling vehicles out in this country. But Madam Speaker, where are the SMEs who are supplying parts and components to these industries? We do not have them. I do know and realize, and I applaud the government for the effort of encouraging our young people to join TVETs, and also for paying whatever costs that are involved in TVET education. But Madam Speaker, we still have many more who've been churned out by our universities, local universities, who have got the knowledge, but they may not have the expertise. And that is what is lacking. If we want to grow this nation in manufacturing, we have got to relook at certain other policies. If all the investors who come out here, those who are building roads and those who are involved in construction, where is the transfer, where is the knowledge transfer that they are leaving back here? Madam Speaker, we are borrowing a lot of money. This country, we have borrowed up to the neck. But what are we going to benefit? What is the benefit after we have gotten the buildings and the fellows have gone? We will still be waiting 20 years from today for other fellows who are more technically, who have more technical expertise to come and start building our roads and building our buildings, if we want other buildings to be done, and building our railways. Madam Speaker, that is the sad part of what is currently happening. What missed in this speech, and I listened very, very carefully, what missed in this speech, Madam Speaker, is emphasis on SMEs. Yes, the government is going to launch the SME fund in a week or so. That is contained in the speech. But Madam Speaker, what is the organization of our SMEs? Since independence, the first president and the first government of this republic, 1963, did realize that for us to uplift the local Kenyans, we needed to have a strong and robust cooperative movement. That happened. Madam Speaker, that government carried on, and that is how this country grew. That's how this country got its roots. Madam Speaker, the second government, something went wrong in that area, in the area of cooperative development. But when the Kibaki administration came, the thing was revived again, and cooperatives were robust. How come now we are burying the same? That is why when we go back to our constituencies, we are finding fellows who are disorganized. We have people in agriculture who do not know how to make agriculture, how to transform agriculture from peasant to business. Because you cannot do that if you are not together as a group, if you are not a cooperative. Madam Speaker, just look at the funds that we are spending, the amounts of funding that's going down to our women groups and youth groups. Look at the organization on the ground. It is not there. Madam Speaker, I move that what needs to happen is, first of all, to realize that we need to get an organized society at the micro level so that we are able to fund those groups and groupings to make them economically viable. In agriculture, Madam Speaker, yes, we have done well. We have got a lot of food surplus at the moment, which is true. But during this period of drought, it's very disheartening that wherever you visit, in particularly arid and semi-arid areas, people are talking of hunger. My committee was in Marsabit this week, and people are talking of food relief, which is not getting to them. I think the government has not been here. But you do not quite understand how. We have two levels of government now. That's why we have got devolution. That the government on the ground is the county government. That should have been the very first point of call. Should be the first point of entry for all these complaints. But Madam Speaker, what you hear when you travel around this country is that people are hungry and they want the national government to come and bring the food. And that is okay. The food is there in plenty. All the garage, I'm sure and I believe, because I've heard statements from both the Minister for Agriculture and the Minister for Devolution, that yes, we do have enough food in this country. Then can somebody explain to me why we have Kenyans who will sleep hungry if we have all this food? And why Kenyans will sleep hungry when this House, this Senate, has passed so much money to our county governments? So, Madam Speaker, I want to repeat what I said here when we were discussing Turkana. As we are looking for fellows who are draining or killing the economy of this country through corruption, that we also want now to revisit. If we hear some Kenyan has died anywhere in this country, we want to take that governor to jail. That governor must be taken to jail because we have given resources. If the national government has not taken food to your county, go for it where it is, because it is in the stores. If fellows cannot take maize, Madam Speaker, I want again to be on record. In Mwea, there was some bumper harvest of rice. When you go there, farmers don't know where to sell the rice. Fellows still are dying of food. This season, there's going to be another bumper harvest in Mwea. We want government to go and buy all that rice and put it in a strategic food reserve so that Kenyans do not die of hunger in this country. Madam Speaker, turning to the area of corruption, I want to support the President 100%, that the one thing that is killing this country is not all this manner of things we are discussing here. But if for every 100 shillings that we produce, we are losing 65 shillings, and we are left with 35 shillings, how can we call ourselves a nation in a situation like that? Madam Speaker, we want the war on corruption to be intensified from top all the way up to bottom, all the way up to where our cooperatives live, all the way
through the middle class of civil service. And also, I also want to say it's not only in government where corruption is, even the private sector. It's the private sector that corrupts government. And so, Madam Speaker, we want to see very, very serious action from the institutions that have been mandated to fight this war. And with that, Madam Speaker, I beg to support.
Thank you, Senator Mbogo George Ochilayako.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for giving me an opportunity to record my support for the remarks made by His Excellency the President. Madam Speaker, the President made very good remarks that as a nation we should listen to keenly, and we should support with all that we are able to do. And Madam Speaker, the speech started with the issue of the need for unity. We as a nation cannot achieve anything. We cannot do anything. We cannot make progress unless we unite against what is ailing us. We cannot get anywhere. In fact, we cannot even be called a nation if we are not united. We would be called perhaps different ethnicities or different geopolitical regions if we continue doing separationist politics. So it is important as a nation, is important as a country for us to discover the purpose for which we are called Kenya, unite in building Kenya, unite in facing the challenges that we face as a nation, so that the outcome as it is presently and as it will be in the future, and in the future that will come some other day, is one of optimism. So it is important for all of us to embrace the spirit of handshake, the spirit of unity, so that we have a united country where every Kenyan feels a sense of belonging, where every Kenyan enjoys being Kenyan, and where every Kenyan is able to work hard enough and benefit from the sweat or the product of hard work. That aspect of the speech is very good, and I believe that those who have misunderstood the issue of handshake heard it from the President and should change their minds and support that spirit. Elections come and go, but nations must stay. Actually, elections are used to renew nationhood. If you do not hold elections, or if you keep on cheating election in, election out, you may end up with situations that are now obtaining in Sudan, where you do not have a government. The government has fled, and I think the strong people, they are trying to constitute something or put something in place to try and pretend to be government. You know, there is a similar situation that has also obtained in Algeria, and sometime last year a similar happening took place in Zimbabwe. We do not want that to happen in Kenya, and yet we also do not want elections to be divisive, so that the divisions can pull asunder the very fabric that hold us together. So every election, whatever side you find yourself in, and whatever result you end up with, you should be able to shake the hands of your competitor and say Kenya must continue, the nation must continue, and look forward to participating in another election as a united country. And I think that aspect of the speech of the President is very good. We cannot have peaceful campaigns. We cannot expend a lot of money as a nation, our taxes, and end up with frowning at one another or being hostile to one another to the extent that violence can break down just because somebody else became the president and another failed to be the president. And I think this is a new chapter in the life of this nation that we all should embrace. I am happy that attempts are being made through the BBI to find a legal framework to underpin this new found philosophy so that elections contribute to stability of our nation and not instability as has been the case in the past. So I fully support the President in his quest to have a united country, a united people, united for the common benefit of all of us. Now, the aspect of the President's speech that talked about corruption is also something that we should take seriously. Corruption is denying this nation resources that could be used to build the nation, resources that could be used to ensure that each and every one of us, able or disabled, male or female, has something on the table to eat. Corruption is also part of the reason that there is fierce competition in elections, so that you get into office and say that it's my turn to eat, it's the turn of my cronies, it's the turn of my community to eat, and then it becomes a competition of life and death for people who are competing to eat. Yet when death comes, we all die, and you don't die because you have overfed, you die because you must die. Once you are born, a time comes in your life, man or woman, when you have to pass on to some other life. So it is important for us as a nation to unite and ensure that we face the cancer of corruption squarely and deal with it as people who love this country. Madam Speaker, you will find that resources that belong to all of us in this country, and we have a very elaborate budget, a budget that runs into trillions. But when you look at what we achieve out of those budgets, what we achieve out of those plans, you find that we achieve a few faceless people who have put the money in their pockets and forgotten about the poor of this country. As we talk today, money is said to have gone to dams like, money that was intended for dams like Aror and other dams, Thwake, have been pocketed by people. Those plans are beautiful plans, but there is nothing on the ground. As we talk today, Madam Speaker, you will find that the stadia that we were promised, or we promised the nation that will be delivered, the 8 of them, none has been constructed so far, but we keep on having a political class that is getting rich every night, every day, as large masses of people get poor and they continue starving. Mr. Speaker, this is not the way, this is not the logical way of, Madam Speaker, this is not the logical way of building a nation. This is actually the worst way of pulling a nation down if we continue taking public resources and applying them for our personal gain instead of using them to feed our poor, educating our young persons, and creating employment for those who want to work and continue paying taxes to our treasury, so that we have a sustainable way of funding our projects. So, Madam Speaker, I fully support the President in his quest to have a corrupt-free nation, in his quest to have us convert ourselves to crusaders against corruption. Madam Speaker, where I come from, which is Migori County, we are a rich county in Migori County in terms of resources. We have the best part of Lake Victoria. from Karungu Bay to Miuru Bay. And when you look at Lake Victoria, it's a beautiful lake. We should be having plenty of fish. We have gold reserves in places like Nyatike, and those gold reserves make a few people rich. We have very wonderful arable land in places like Awendo, Uriri, Rongo, Suna East, Suna West, and Kuria, and we could do wonderful farming. But Mr. Speaker, Madam Speaker, the desolation and poverty that we have in those places is because the resources that are intended to benefit our people dry up or end up in private pockets. So this war of corruption, if we just take Migori as an example, if we were to utilize the resources according to plan, if we were to utilize these resources well, then we would have self-reliant people. We would have people who are able to feed themselves, to employ themselves, and also contribute to our revenue collection because of their sweat. But this is not happening because corruption, and corruption. And if we do not deal with it, we'll probably have no nation, no Senate, no National Assembly, and no institution to talk of, because all these institutions require public funding and require commitment to proper utilization of those public funding so that we have service delivery to the public. Madam Speaker, the President also mentioned the issue of security. Just before we embarked on this order, there were quite a number of statements and concerns about the state of security, particularly in universities or institutions of higher learning. We continue losing our young ones, the young ones who should be taking over from us, the young ones that we have educated and expended money by taking them to school, and the young ones who have technical knowledge. And what makes it more painful is the fact that the ones we lose are the female ones. I want to state, Madam Speaker, that life is given to us through ladies, and when we continue having some characters kill our girls, kill the best of our children because of passion or because of dementia, Madam Speaker, this is very unfortunate. I wish we can do as a nation better than we are doing in terms of providing security and support to the girl child, to the child that needs education in university, in tertiary institution, so that we can protect and defend them from sexual predators or other people who want to exploit them. Madam Speaker, it is very sad that lives have been lost this way. In my county, Migori County, we lost a very beautiful girl, one Sharon Otieno, and the people suspected to have taken away her life are the people who are also expected to have been protecting her, are expected to have been her benefactor. So it's very unfortunate that the strong in society, the able, those who are mandated to look after our little ones, our vulnerable ones, are the ones that we suspect to be the ones going after them, the ones going or having plans to disseminate, to kill them. So, Madam Speaker, it is clear that the law allows at times the law allows ourselves to defend the ones we love. If you look at the criminal law, you will find that it is actually not a crime to kill in defense of a person you love, particularly family or property, or to defend something that is held dear to you. I want to propose, and I hope that as a Senate in this period and as a Parliament, we'll have occasion to look into this. I think some of these characters who kill girls, particularly these girls who are in college, something should be done to them. They should not be walking freely. They should not be around. We should do something. If the law allows individuals to defend themselves to the extent of even killing these people, then I think the state should act in haste and get these people out of society so that we all can rest in our homes, knowing that our children are safe, knowing that nobody using money or improper influence will lure them out of their productive activities and have them murdered. With those very many remarks, Madam Speaker, I would like to support the President's speech. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Senator Mugeni Eric Ogongo.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for also giving me the opportunity to comment on the speech that was delivered by His Excellency the President on the 4th of April, 2019. First, Madam Speaker, I want to sincerely pay my hearty congratulations to the President for emphasizing the issue of the unity of all Kenyans. Madam Speaker, I'm sure that if this speech was being made in 2018, perhaps we could not be standing here to give our comments on the President's speech. And that really goes a long way to score the importance of the handshake that took place between His Excellency the President and the Right Honorable Prime Minister Raila Amolo Odinga. And Madam Speaker, as the President truly said, let's not forget where we have come from, Madam Speaker. We all know what this country went through in 2007, and I think the President did caution us that we should not take the easy options. And the easy option would be to divide this country, put us into this idea of us versus them, which will really not help us in building a cohesive Kenya that we will be proud of and that the future generations will be proud of. And Madam Speaker, I want to urge all of us politicians to really exercise caution in the kind of language that we are using when we address our supporters. Madam Speaker, oftentimes you watch people speaking in rallies, and you find that somebody that this country has come to honor, somebody who has been appointed to be our representative in the AU on matters of infrastructure, he's called names. I hear at times people say, ule muganga, ule mtu wa vitendawili. That does not help this country, Madam Speaker. I think we should now appreciate that we want to forget the past politics of divisiveness, and we move forward as one people. Politics will always be there. Elections come and go. We had our elections in 2017. His Excellency President Kenyatta won, and William Ruto, and we are moving to 2022. We'll have other elections. We don't know who will win. It's only God who knows who will be our president in 2022. I think for now, let's rally behind the President in ensuring that we build a country that is united, that is cohesive. And I want to plead to ourselves as leaders. The President did say that they are looking forward to receiving the report by the Building Bridges team. And I know, Madam Speaker, that this team has been going around the country. They have been virtually to all counties, Madam Speaker. And if their findings and recommendations will move us towards amending the Constitution that we enacted in 2010, so be it, Madam Speaker. Because if that's what the people of Kenya want, let's not stand on the way of the people of Kenya. And so, Madam Speaker, when that time comes, when we receive the findings, the recommendations of the Building Bridges, let's remove the politics of 2022 from the sentiments that the Kenyan people may have expressed to the Building Bridges team. But, Madam Speaker, there are some things that are worrying, Madam Speaker. The issue of corruption, Madam Speaker. You can imagine that ever since devolution came to be, 1.8 trillion has been disbursed to our counties. But what is there for us to show? Madam Speaker, other than some counties that have really set the pace, like Makueni, and I want to congratulate my former law teacher, Professor Kivutha Kibwana, the governor from Makueni, who has come up with an hospital that takes care of our women who are giving birth, our young children. And I'm just wondering what other counties are doing, Madam Speaker. It is a sad case, Madam Speaker, in that in most counties, about 80% of the money that is sent to counties is used as a recurrent expenditure, meaning that it's only 20% that is spent on development. Madam Speaker, if this trend continues, then Kenya may not attain the Vision 2030, because we want to improve the quality of our people by building hospitals, and health is a devolved function, Madam Speaker. If we don't use this money to improve our health infrastructure, like what Makueni County is doing, then, Madam Speaker, the people we represent in our counties will start getting disappointed. They will not feel the impact of devolution. So, Madam Speaker, as people who have been elected to this Senate to oversight devolution, we must continue to remind our governors that the resources that we send to them should be used for development and not for people to convert it into money they can give to their preferred companies. And this is what the President was reminding us as leaders, that we need to see value for this money that we send to our counties. And then, Madam Speaker, the issue of the rule of law, Madam Speaker. Corruption, we all appreciate, is a cancer. But, Madam Speaker, in combating corruption, we must also heed the fact that we must operate within the four corners of the rule of law. Madam Speaker, while I was the chairman of Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission, I once traveled to Nigeria. And there used to be a chairman of Economic and Financial Crimes Commission of Nigeria, Nu Libadu. And Madam Speaker, Nu Libadu was appointed the chair of EFCC. He forgot, Madam Speaker, that in fighting corruption, there are some guiding principles. One of it is that you don't politicize the war against corruption. Two, the war against corruption must be fought fairly. Three, Madam Speaker, we should not fight corruption through the media, Madam Speaker, because this constitution that we enacted in 2010 gives all of us a presumption of innocence. And till and unless the DPP has received recommendations either from the DCI or from the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission, one must be presumed innocent, Madam Speaker. If you go to the Serious Fraud Office in the UK, Madam Speaker, they deal with about 10 cases a year. But you will never see the kind of headlines that we see in this country. Yesterday, I was seeing headlines saying 40 billion scandal at KPA. And in the next 2-3 months, you will not see anybody being taken to court, Madam Speaker. But in the process, you taint reputations of professionals who are heading these bodies. When they travel out of the country, Madam Speaker, because of the technology that we have, if somebody Googles their name, they will appear there, like people who are being investigated for corruption. It's not fair. I think the proper way of fighting corruption, Madam Speaker, is that we should leave our independent bodies like the DCI, the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission, to do their investigations quietly. They make recommendations for prosecution to the DPP. Once the office of DPP has approved prosecution, that's when we should have press release going out to newspapers about so-and-so being taken to court for corruption. But this idea, Madam Speaker, where every day you open a newspaper is about a scandal, and you never see these people finally being taken to courts and charged with any offense. I think it's not fair, and we should rally behind the President in reminding those who are heading DCI, those who are heading Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission, that they should be professional, they should be fair, they should not be guided by desire to make headline news. That's not why they are there. They should do their job quietly, and we should see results from prosecutions and convictions in our court of law. And Madam Speaker, the DPP and the DCI must appreciate that the Constitution that we enacted in 2010 allows each to overcheck the other, Madam Speaker. If the recommendations of the DCI go to the DPP and is convinced that the case is one that cannot sustain a conviction in a court of law, he should return the file back to the DCI and say, this one I don't think it can pass the test in any court of law. What am I saying, Madam Speaker? These two offices should not operate like they are one and the same. Because if that happens, then it means that the independence of the Director of Public Prosecutions is no longer there, and that's not what the Kenyan Constitution 2010 envisages. Madam Speaker, there is this issue of environment, Madam Speaker. We are now deep into the month of April, and we have a serious shortage of rain, Madam Speaker. Our President did remind us that we should really take care of our environment, Madam Speaker. We have had a lot of discussions on Mau, what has been happening in Mau. And Madam Speaker, as we talk about Mau, introduce politics, look at what is happening in the Mara. Mara River has dried up, Madam Speaker. That world-renowned tourist attraction can no longer have the animals that cross from Tanzania to Kenya, which form as a main base really for the tourists to come to our country, Kenya. And this should worry us, Madam Speaker. When people, experts in this field, environmentalists, urge us to protect the Mau, it's not for nothing, Madam Speaker. And if we care about the future generations, Madam Speaker, we really need to protect our environment, Madam Speaker. If you go to my county in Nyamira, Madam Speaker, people have planted eucalyptus trees right up to the riverbed. And most rivers in Nyamira have dried up, Madam Speaker. Water shortage is a serious issue. It's a serious problem, Madam Speaker. And now we're having campaigns by chiefs urging people to uproot these trees, Madam Speaker. And we cannot afford to politicize because it's an issue of life and death, Madam Speaker. If we don't take care of our environment, Madam Speaker, we are going to endanger our future generations, Madam Speaker. I was watching a TV documentary the other day, Madam Speaker, and a process that started by a small group of people on cleaning Nairobi River has now turned Nairobi River into a park. People go there to do parties, Madam Speaker. The river has been cleaned up, Madam Speaker. And we should, that's the kind of message that we should send to our people, Madam Speaker. So I really want to applaud the President on that, and I hope, Madam Speaker, that as leaders, we'll take these matters seriously. Madam Speaker, on issues infrastructure, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I hope that this railway, the railway network will not just terminate at Naivasha, Madam Speaker. We want to see this railway network flowing all the way from Mombasa to Malaba. And as it travels to Malaba, it should pass through Kericho, pass through Nyamira. There was a plan that one of the stops should be in Ikonge, Madam Speaker. And we want this thing to be realized, Madam Speaker. When the President came there campaigning in 2017, he told the people of Nyamira that when we do the railway, it will pass through Naivasha, Narok, Kericho, Ikonge, and head to Kisumu. So our people in Nyamira are waiting. We want to see the next phase of this railway so that it can extend. We all want to enjoy this network. And I'm waiting for the time when the President will invite us to take this ride from Nairobi to Naivasha. Then we can get promises when it will extend to other areas. But Madam Speaker, there is a serious problem on this issue of infrastructure, Madam Speaker. Most contractors, Madam Speaker, are not able to deliver on the projects they are given on time, Madam Speaker. I can give an example, Madam Speaker, of a road which is being constructed from a market called Kijauri to Manga to Mecheo and terminating in Metamayo, Madam Speaker. This is a project that was meant to be finalized in October 2019. But what has been done is just 30%, Madam Speaker. I hope, Madam Speaker, that Mr. Matiang'i, the CS who has been given the task of supervising other ministries, can push these contractors so that they deliver these projects on time, Madam Speaker. There is no point of getting a contract, you sign, you are given money, you are supposed to complete it within 24 months, and you take about 48 months to complete the project. Madam Speaker, that slows the development pace in this country, and it will really impact negatively on the desire of this country to ensure that we attain Vision 2030. On agriculture, Madam Speaker, I'm speaking on behalf of the coffee farmers, Madam Speaker, who, Madam Speaker, have been taking loans at very excessive interest rates of up to 18%. I applaud the idea the President has brought on board that now loans will be affordable. They will be given loans at 3%. And Madam Speaker, we must also continue supporting our farmers by giving them fertilizer at subsidized prices. Madam Speaker, we must continue giving incentives to our farmers, especially maize farmers, Madam Speaker. They should be paid on time. There should be timely payments. Madam Speaker, I notice that my time is over. Can I conclude in 1 minute?
Yes, 1 minute. You have the wrong microphone. Yeah. Given the microphone to conclude in 1 minute, please.
Thank you. Finally, Madam Speaker, my final comment was on the National Government Constituency Development Fund. Madam Speaker, there is a report appearing in today's newspaper that over 800 million shillings from the National Government Constituency Development Fund cannot be accounted for. Madam Speaker, you cannot disburse money, implement, and oversight. Madam Speaker, our friends in the National Assembly should allow committees that have been set up under the NGCDF to be the ones implementing NGCDF projects, and the role of members of parliament should be to oversight the expenditure. Madam Speaker, if we continue losing money in NGCDF at the rate we are losing, Madam Speaker, we will not see the true value of NGCDF funds. With that, Madam Speaker, I support the speech by His Excellency the President. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. Senator Pareno, Judith Ramaita.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I rise to contribute to and make my comments on the statement by the President, the address of the nation by the President. And Madam Speaker, having looked at this address by the President, I have come across, the President has used the term no turning back almost 10 times in this address, that we shall not turn back. And Madam Speaker, I would want to say that this is really promising coming from our President and coming from where we are coming from as a country, knowing that we are fighting corruption. We have had a problem with our systems, election systems, and reforms with the rule of law. And he goes ahead to say that the status of our nation is strong and that he's not turning back on what we are doing. And Madam Speaker, sometimes you wonder, when we are told that the state is strong, I want to say that notwithstanding, I believe that the President is serious in saying that he's not turning back. But we have a lot of challenges on corruption, drought. As we speak now, no rain so far. The long rains are not forthcoming. I don't know how prepared we are. You remember last time a lot of money was set aside because there would be El Nino rains or La Nina. We don't know where those funds went to. Right now, as we speak, our children are being killed. Our young girl, Ivy Wangeshi, just brutally killed. A lot of killings, senseless killings, insecurity, joblessness for our youth and our people. But I want to believe that his commitments that we are not going to turn back on that which is gainful to this country, I want to believe that he's serious this time. Notwithstanding, I just remembered, Madam Speaker, when once our president, when he was Minister for Finance, when he said, can't pay, won't pay. And then later as president, the payment was made for those Anglo-leasing issues that had arisen when he was minister himself of finance. But I want to say that this is a new gesture. I would want to believe that he's serious in saying more than 10 times in this speech that we are not going to turn back as a country. I have noted, Madam Speaker, that he has really given hope to our athletes, hope to our entrepreneurs, hope to our people in various disciplines, even to our teachers, that there is no turning back for a better future in this country. And Madam Speaker, the peak of it all for me is when he said there will be no turning back on the Building Bridges initiative. Madam Speaker, this is a process that I really appreciate. Madam Speaker, the other day I was telling the chair that you have a chance to give a new future or to give a turning point for this country. With what you'll come up as BBI, you stand a chance to redirect this country to the right direction. I believe in the support that the President and the People's President, Raila Amolo Odinga, has for the BBI. We believe in them, and I can assure you, if this support continues, and there will be no turning back as this President has assured us, this country will definitely be having a brighter future. In fact, my presentation the other day, as I was making a presentation, I was telling the chair, some of us can make our presentation individually. I know the Senate is coming up with something up. But for me, if you only dealt with corruption in this country, if you only dealt with inclusivity in this country, so that we all belong, we all feel that we are Kenyans, then I can assure you that you will have sorted out the lack of bridges in this country. So saying this support and express no turning backwards from the President on the building bridges is really encouraging. And I am believing that by the time the BBI comes to complete their job, I am believing that they'll give us a new face, probably suggest even a new structure for this governance in this country to enable us have total inclusivity in whatever we are doing and in governance. And we laud the President for this support and for him coming out strongly on the issues of the handshake. Madam Speaker, the President has talked about unity several times again in his statement. Cohesion several times. And you know this is what will make us a nation. Without unity, without cohesion, we cannot be. So I am happy that the issues that matter have come out strongly in his speech to the state and to the parliament. And we would love to applaud the President for saying that he has heard the cries of our people and that he's going to ensure that what we are crying for is going to be met. Of course, we have those cries that some of us have been left out in the country, those cries that please stop this corruption that is draining this country dry. And if these are the cries that the President has had, then I am sure he's promised to the people that I have heard your cries, and the hopes and the aspirations of the Kenyans will be met, and we will definitely go places. I think our President is coming out strongly, telling us that I want to leave a legacy, a good nation behind, as having served us for 2 terms. If you go by his address, telling us that we shall not turn back on devolution. We shall not turn back on fights against corruption. We shall not turn back on issues that touch on healthcare, on issues that touch on education. He is saying that I will complete this task for you. Mr. President, we applaud you, and we believe that you shall not turn back, and we shall be behind you, rally behind you, and ensure that there is no turning back, or whatever that is required shall be done. Of course, our president came out strongly to say that we shall fight our enemies from without and from within. Who is our enemy from within? We all know. Those that support corruption, you are our enemies from within. Those that support non-inclusivity, discrimination, tribal, you are the enemies from within. Those that don't come out strongly in support of building bridges, whoever does not want a bridge between me and my brother, between me and my sister, you are the enemy from within. I am happy that our president has come to say that he is not turning back on fighting those enemies from within and from without. Mr. President, fight them. We are with you. Madam Speaker, I have a lot of attachment to the EAC integration. And our president came out strongly and mentioned even what the president of Uganda, His Excellency Yoweri Museveni, said when he visited. But, Madam Speaker, I am so disappointed with our partner states. Not saying that Kenya has failed, but I want to say that the majority of our partner states have failed to support the integration process. They have, it is now like just business as usual. Last time, Madam Speaker, when we went for the EAC Games in Burundi, we were there in December, just 3 months ago. On that day, when we were doing the planning of the Games, the East African Secretariat, in fact, IALA, that plans the Games, was not present because they did not even have funds to travel to Burundi. And they said that we are waiting for, even on that day, they were waiting for some emergency fund for a partner state to just give in whatever they felt like that day to save the day so that the IALA and the EAC could participate in the East African Parliamentary Games. On that day, initially, I had asked, how much had the partner states given? On that day, Burundi had given 0. On that day, Kenya had done 80% of its payment. Rwanda, 12%. I am appealing to our brothers in Rwanda. You used to do so well. You used to contribute on time. What is happening? Why are we behind in terms of contribution? On that day, South Sudan, 0% in terms of contribution. I mean that time when we went for the EAC Games. I don't know how much they have paid by now. On that day, the United Republic of Tanzania, I remember even telling the chairman who was chairing the preparations of the Games, how can you be here and you're not telling your republic to pay up what is due to EAC? They had done 0% by that day. And then Uganda, by that day, had done 32%. Yet that was December, and the financial year is just about to end. It was actually supposed to have been we should have been halfway through in terms of payments of our contributions. So, Mr. President, somebody somewhere is sleeping on their job when it comes to the EAC integration. Our brothers and sisters cannot keep saying we are building the integration process when we are not contributing. There are processes that had been proposed that we even give alternative source of funding. And the summit where our president sits were supposed to give directions on alternative source of funding. I am happy that the president has talked about the EAC integration, but I am not happy about the pace at which the contribution is being made. And Mr. President, we need you to come strongly out on the EAC integration, noting that the EAC integration is part of the backbone of our economy. Madam Speaker, finally, on devolution, the President told us that from April 2013, more than 1.7 trillion had been given to the counties. We are not happy. As a Senate, a lot of this money is being plundered in the counties. We are oversighting on this, but we would want to get more support, especially from the President, on the mandate of the Senate. If only our President can stop signing bills that come from National Assembly that have a bearing on the devolution and has a bearing on the Senate's mandate, then we'll sort out the rivalry, the sibling rivalry that is between us and the National Assembly. Mr. President, as a Senate, we support devolution. We are the protectors of devolution. We are asking, do not sign bills that have not passed through the Senate when they are supposed to have passed through the Senate. This way, our mandate shall be protected. This way, we shall be able to support you on devolution as the senators of this country. Madam Speaker, I support.
Thank you, Senator. Senator Sakaja, Johnson, Aga.
Madam Speaker, thank you. I wish to also record my thanks to the President of the Republic of Kenya for his exposition of public policy, popularly known as a State of the Nation address that was delivered to Parliament just the other day, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, it was an interesting speech, if you look at it critically. It came at a time when there were expectations from one side and reservations from another side, Madam Speaker. I never thought or imagined that at any one time, leaders who have taken oath to protect our country and its constitution and to be stewards over the public would be so visibly divided on the matter of the fight against corruption. And I believed that, Madam Speaker, that signaled a tough time for our country, where even on the most basic of things, we look at, for the sake of our country, through political lenses, Madam Speaker, safeguarding this country. Let me start with the issues on the unity of Kenya, because according to the law, that's really the first thing that the President is supposed to talk about when he talks about measures taken and the progress achieved in the realization of national values and principles of governance as espoused in Article 10 of the Constitution of Kenya. Madam Speaker, I am glad that the President affirmed resoundingly his commitment to the Building Bridges initiative, popularly known as the handshake, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, for the last close to 50 years, this country has been divided down the middle, Madam Speaker. We've looked at each other not based on the content of one's character, not based on what they believe in, but the first thing we've always been asking is, where does this person come from, what community, and what is their surname? There is nothing more important, Madam Speaker, at this time for our country than the unity of our people. And we are to blame as political leaders all the way from independence to date. We have divided our people. We have made people look at each other and make political choices not based on merit, not based on the content, but just based on what we call, Madam Speaker, in quotes, mtu wetu syndrome, Madam Speaker. That must change. We're a country that is beautiful. We're a country that has so much potential. We're a country that actually should be leaping. We are the precipice of greatness, Madam Speaker. We're at the cusp of greatness, sorry, Madam Speaker. And the one thing that has held us back has been tribalism in this country. I remember a few days ago when we were vetting the Inspector General of Police, Mr. Mutiambai, that shade of our public life came to the fore. Normally, members of a committee sit, and this was a joint committee, but also you're allowed to have friends of the committee coming. And I pointed out that it cannot be a coincidence that the only members from both houses who came as friends of the committee also happened, coincidentally, to be from his community. There was no other friend of the committee from any other community. And I asked him, can you affirm this country that when you become the Inspector General, you will not be a Mkamba Inspector General? Yes, you come from that community, and we're proud of our cultural heritage. But even if you yourself do not think in a tribalistic way, your community then can come and surround you. And then before you know it, when you come to see you in your office, the secretary is from your community, your driver is from your community, the promotions are from members of your community, certain departments are from members of your community. That has been what we have been used to in this country. Many of us in this house, Madam Speaker, their PAs are from their community. The driver is from the community. The secretary is from the community. It's as if that is the most, important qualifying aspect. We must change those things. And so, in as much as the president affirmed building bridges and his endeavor to correct the wrongs of the past, we are saying that now it has been a year since the handshake. We want to see actionable, interventions. We want to see not just the rhetoric, but the action from that committee. We want to make sure, Madam Speaker, that in public places in this country, we ban the speaking of vernacular in public offices. And sometimes I'm sympathetic to the words of President Moi when he said that these stations and this, moving into our tribal cocoons will divide us more than unite us. And I know I've been attacked severally for that position, but it's my position, Madam Speaker. In as much as we want to listen to Kass, when you leave your vehicle after listening to Kass, do you feel more Kenyan or more Kalenjin? When you listen to Kameme, my brother, and I've gone to those stations. In fact, in the campaign, I had an advertisement in 6, I can speak 6 of our ethnic languages, at least a few paragraphs. But when you listen to that one, do you feel more Kenyan or do you feel more of your community? We must identify and create an identity that supersedes that of our communities. And the reason why we are so tribalistic, Madam Speaker, is because we've not been able as a country to define what the Kenyan identity truly is. And that's why we move to the least common denominator, such that even in those parts of our country where everyone is from the same community, say Northeastern, they move to the lowest common denominator, and now it becomes clanism. But then ask yourself, then what does it mean to be a Kenyan? What does it mean to be, a person born in this country with heritage in this country? Unless we define it for our people, then they'll always go back to that cocoon. They'll always go back to it, Madam Speaker. And does Kenya mean more to us? Is it that we were just stuck in these 61,000 square kilometers and we must get along? Is it that we have communities that are so different that there's no higher ideal? Julius Nyerere did it in Tanzania. I've been there many times. Senator Pareno has been there in Yala. Even in the most remote village, inside a matatu, you will not hear anybody speaking in the ethnic language. Why? Because of what it does in case there's somebody who is not getting it. We must bring our country together. The challenges we face across this country are the same. A mother in Nyeri will feel the exact same pain when she cannot feed a child that a mother in Kajiado will feel. It's the same. A father in Luo Nyanza, in Kisumu, Kondele, will feel the same amount of shame and pain when he has to give his daughter up to a life of prostitution that a father in, Kilifi will. We have more that unites us in this country than what divides us. And I'm glad that I am the senator of Nairobi, where we have all these communities. I keep telling my people in Nairobi, there is no problem that faces Kikuyus that is different from that which faces Kambas. There is no pothole that is for Luos. There is no shortage of water that only affects Luyas. In fact, for us, we have said we have only 2 communities in Nairobi: the haves and the have-nots, the rich and the poor. And we must rally our people around that realization that we will not go forward unless we deal with that. For many times, Madam Speaker, I've been telling the President, yes, you've done a lot in terms of hardware. We have electricity. You know, we have seen many parts of the country getting it. We've seen the road network expanding. You brought the SGR. But that hardware cannot hold us together as a country. The 100-year-old railway was uprooted in less than 3 hours in Kibera during the 2007 post-election violence. Unless we build the software that drives us, and the software starts with unity, a Kenyan identity, a people proud of themselves, that I do not look down upon you because you do not speak the language I speak. That I do not choose a political leader because he comes from my place, because that does not mean that he will deliver. So we are standing behind the President in the Building Bridges initiative. You know, when it began, I kept saying, why is it that it's only old people involved? Why is it all that, that the youngest person there is, maybe 55 or 60? Yet the majority of our country is young people. And then I told myself that is the wrong question to ask. Young people will stop being asked to be involved. Young people of this country will realize that every generation has its cause and its season, and the season and cause for our young generation, the young people of this country, and I'm proud to be one of them, even constitutionally, our season and our cause is to unite this country. And every time this country has needed to be taken to the next level, it has been the young people. In the 40s and the 50s, in the 50s moving on to the 60s, it was a young Thomas Joseph Mboya in his 20s who went round this world negotiating the Piccadilly Constitution, the Littleton Settlement, up until Lancaster, in his 20s. Mwai Kibaki was 32 when he was executive director of KANU. All of them were young. They didn't have the facilities and the conveniences we have today of WhatsApp groups, of phone calls, or of telephones. They didn't have TV that they could see what's happening. But because they were so sure about what their generation had to do, they spanned the length and breadth of this country and got us independence. And they were united. Both parties had people from all communities. Something went wrong down the way. 50 years later, Madam Speaker, it is again the young people who will unite this country under the leadership of our President, Uhuru Kenyatta, under the leadership of our deputy and the leadership of the former Prime Minister. We want them to be able to work together. And I'm urging my colleagues, because it is a great disservice for us to bring politics into building bridges. The intention of building bridges was not political, I know. I have sat down with the former Prime Minister, I have sat down with the President. Theirs is not political. So people should stop putting political glasses onto this issue of building bridges. We must unite our country if there's nothing else that we're going to do, Madam Speaker. The second issue, Madam Speaker, is corruption. And the President was very clear. I don't know how much longer do I have. The fight against corruption must go on. It must not target any community. And he said it's not targeting any community. It is not targeting any individual. In fact, the other day, a journalist asked me, do you think the fight of corruption is targeting some people? I said, actually, yes. It's targeting thieves. So if you're a thief, you run scared. But if you're honest in your dealings in public life, please support this fight, because we are snatching away the future from our own children. And the President should know that, yes, you do not want a vigilante kind of, way of dealing with it, mob justice. There's the legal issues, yes, you're innocent until proven guilty, yes. You go to court, yes. But, Mr. President, you also have intelligence. You know. Someone should not serve in your government if you know for sure that they are stealing. And the thieves, we know them. Just fire them and let them. The same way when you appointed them, no one asked. You didn't ask us. So in the same way, show us, get rid of it. Kenyans are suffering in this country. Kenyans are feeling that their own personal lack of opportunities is because of a corrupt few. Fire them, let the justice system go on when they're outside your government. Don't sit in cabinet with people you know have stolen from Kenyans. Have parastatal heads you know have stolen from Kenyans. Don't do it, Mr. President, and I'm sure he is listening. You cannot do the same thing the same way and expect different results. It's high time we upped the ante in the fight against corruption. Madam Speaker, on the economy, the President said the state is good. And he says that when you look at the numbers. But when you look at the actual lives of Kenyans, Kenyans are feeling the pain. This country has been at war with its SMEs. We need to change that narrative. The other day we had small traders from Nairobi, from Nyamakima, from Kamkunji, who are saying, why is it that the national government is only sitting with KEPSA, the blue collar and white collar business people, yet the bulk of our economy is driven by SMEs. Every day they are being chased right, left, and center in this city. Oh, today it is counterfeit. How do you tell somebody that they're selling a counterfeit vuvuzela? What is the original vuvuzela? Surely, a counterfeit duvet. But we're protecting big businessmen at the expense of our Kenyans, of our young people, Madam Speaker. Our small traders every day are being harassed. We're looking at them as a scourge that needs to be dealt with. The other day, a governor was driving, insulting them. Yet they're the backbone of our economy, our mamambogas. The same governor is supposed to be providing space, opportunities, sheds for them to ply their trade. We will not develop if we only think about the big person in this country. The small person, the ordinary mwananchi wants someone to fight for them, and I believe it is going to be this house, Madam Speaker. Border operators are seen as criminals. They're chased everywhere. Yet we're saying the rate of crime is going up. Today, if somebody drives a border into this town, they are arrested and they're told to bring 30,000 shillings to get it out. What are we talking about, Madam Speaker? I've just spoken about the issue of Uber drivers in this country. I've been to the US, I've used Uber. I've used Uber and other applications in London. And even on your receipt, you see, this is the tax that has gone to the government. We're not getting a shilling. But immediately you get into that cab, 25% of whatever you pay is going to go to the Netherlands. We must change that. These drivers are not sleeping. They're working more than 12 hours, and we're asking ourselves, why are accidents going up? You cannot have a minimum base fee of 150 shillings. I gave an example the other day. I know Mheshimiwa Maura knows TRM very well. He lives around that side. If you take an Uber from TRM to USIE or a student, 5 of you will get inside there. You will pay 50 shillings each because it's 200 shillings or so. What happens to the guy riding a boda there? Whose charge is 150? And even after charging you that, they cannot afford to service those loans. 2,500 Ubers were auctioned the other day. And those who went to take them have also still put them. We will not allow that exploitation. And I want to tell, even if the drivers are listening, this is an issue we're not going to let go of. We have a competition authority in this country. There must be minimum rates that takes care of both the consumer and the business person, Madam Speaker. We have forgotten that sports is a frontier for economic development. We talk about the economy and forget that sports and the arts, music, our artists, we must make sure we have the minimum quota of 60% local content. A child cannot wake up in Nairobi today or wherever in the country and think all the talent comes from Alejandro in Mexico and from Nigerian music. We're not playing Kenyan music. It must be played, and stations, TV stations, radio stations must pay royalties to our artists, because that is a frontier for economy. Not everybody is book smart like you, Madam Speaker. Some of them, Madam Speaker, are artists, and we must encourage them. Our sports people. I'm glad in Nairobi the county government is building Dandora Stadium. Well done. There's some things Governor Sonko gets right. And I'm telling him to move also to Woodley Grounds in Kibera, to move also to Kayole, to also go to Kawangware. And let's give these young people facilities like we did in Camp Toyoyo when Mheshimiwa Benson was the MP, Madam Speaker. I know my time is up, but I just had 1 more minute, Madam Speaker, because there's an important point touching on my committee that I've not touched on: national security.
2 more minutes.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for your kindness. Madam Speaker, national security, we've spoken here time and time again about extrajudicial killings. It cannot be a crime to be a young person in this country. It should not be a crime to be a young person in Nairobi. I have more than 30 of those boys we have lost, even if they are not engaged in crime. And if they were, we need to have a way that the criminal justice system takes care of them, Madam Speaker. We must have cooperation between the police, and I'm glad the IG said that he's going to work on that. But look at what's happening. Our girls are being killed, Madam Speaker. Ivy Wangeshi the other day was killed. There's insecurity in our universities. My good friend, OCS Ragira, I lost a friend, OCS Ragira, who vied for Kilimani Ward because of the activities happening at Club. If you've been to the University of Nairobi, you know Club 36. We have goons in our universities. We must protect our universities. But I must give, on the floor of this house, mention to Sharon Otieno, Monica Kimani, Lucy Njambi, Madam Speaker, girls we've lost. You know, Lydia Nyaboke, Fiona Kisuya, Grace Wanjiru, their deaths cannot have been in vain. We cannot allow a society that has allowed it to be common and usual for young girls to get killed in such circumstances. Madam Speaker, we will work with the national government, with the county governments to make sure that we move on to building the kind of Kenya we want. But as I finish, we cannot, Madam Speaker, and we cannot, it is not possible for us to build that country unless we deal with the issues of tribalism and the issues of corruption. We need jobs for our young people. The unemployment rate is so high. The state of disillusionment, the biggest threat to our security is disengaged, disillusioned youth. It is not Al-Shabaab. It is young people with degrees sitting in jobless corners. It is house girls with diplomas being paid below minimum wage. It is our watchmen. 450,000 of them, I'm their patron, getting 6,000 shillings, 5,000 shillings, yet you are paying the security company 50,000 shillings, Madam Speaker. We need justice in this country, and we must raise the voice for the common Mwananchi, who today is almost giving up. Madam Speaker, with those very many comments, I choose to support the speech of the President.
Senator Wario Golich Juma.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for giving me this chance to say a word or comment on the President's national address last week. Madam Speaker, the speech was wonderful and very interesting. There were so many achievements which were reached, and very many activities which the government has undertaken and big achievements reached. Madam Speaker, the achievements that we got, there is also a threat that he really elaborated on, and the threat was corruption, Madam Speaker. Corruption has really negative to us because it has impoverished government sectors and also the private sectors. And we really need to rally behind the government and our beloved President in fight against corruption. Madam Speaker, as you know, we are undergoing a long spell of drought, which made most of the nomadic people to walk helter and skelter from here to there in search of pasture and water. Madam Speaker, I went to Marsabit 2 days ago in agricultural committee, and some of the people living around there told us the drought is so much biting that people are sleeping hunger without even one meal a day. Madam Speaker, our President have told us in his speech that government has enough food. I don't know what is happening. Is it the distribution of food, or we were told there is food and yet some of our people are sleeping hungry? And it is very much in an awkward situation whereby our country today, its people live hungry without even a meal a day. And therefore, these things should be checked, whether the distribution agents are the ones who are failing the government, or what is the problem, because our President has ensured us we have enough food. Madam Speaker, the President also talked of the handshake and the building bridges, which is going on. We really support the handshake. We don't want any gap between Kenyans. We need bridges to be built, and we embrace each other so that we have one Kenya for all inclusive people. Madam Chair, the President ensured us of the security that, and it is good always for the government to ensure security for ourselves and our property as it is entrenched into the Constitution. And therefore, he told us men and women and KDF are strong defending this country. Madam Speaker, so many people have turned from a normal human being and turned to wild beasts, if I may say, because there are so many radical groups which have formed themselves and also terrorists which are fighting our efforts. And it is always good for the president to tell us there is a strong force in Kenya which can fight these groups. And however, the terrorists have really shown that they are not of one tribe, but coming from all the diverse. Madam Speaker, the President highlighted support for the devolution, fight against corruption, and also he said he will unite all Kenyans. For that case, building bridges is a noble idea. We don't want any gap between Kenyans, and I support the statement by the President. Thank you.
Senator Kamar Margaret.
Madam Speaker, I thank you for giving me the opportunity to join my colleagues in contributing to the exposition that was given by His Excellency the President during his State of the Nation address. To begin, Madam Speaker, I would like to thank the President, His Excellency, for making a speech that focused on unity of purpose, unity for the nation, and set a very nice tone even for this House. Madam Speaker, you must have realized that after that speech, the tone even between our colleagues has been very good. So we really thank him for focusing on bringing everybody together in the whole speech. Madam Speaker, the President touched on a good number of things, and I'll just pick on a few for purposes because of time. Mr. Speaker, the President also urged this House to do a number of issues, and I pick on the issue of fast-tracking mediation on the bills that are before this House. I would like to join the President and say to the colleagues that are going to be in the mediation committees that it is really very important for us to move this country fast. And to move ourselves fast, we should work on this mediation between ourselves and our colleagues from the other House and ensure that the bills can move faster. Reaching a deadlock and coming to mediation is no crime because it's provided for in our standing orders, and it's very important for us so that we have a common understanding between the two Houses. But I do believe that there are also some issues that arise sometimes that are not understood. But even as we go to mediation, I would like to join colleagues who have said that we'd like to urge the President also not to sign any bill that has not gone through proper mediation between the Houses, or a bill that touches on counties that has not come to this House. This is very important because the structure of Senate and the presence of Senate is truly to protect the interests of the counties, and devolution is here to stay, and it is very important for us all that we ensure that devolution succeeds in the right manner and that the devolved units receive the right resources. Madam Speaker, I and you have been in the East African community, and I'm happy that you have outlined the commitment or lack of it from our partner countries. I want to laud the President for being in the front line when it comes to the African Continental Free Trade Area Agreement. Why do I say this, Madam Speaker? I say this because sometimes the smaller units can create problems because you have very few people. You must have a quorum of all the 5, now 6 countries, and there are always challenges when there are disagreements or there are suspicions and one member lags behind. The reason we have problems in the East African community is because when one has suspicion and lags behind, the smallness of the East African community does not help. Instead, it becomes an impediment sometimes. So it is good that our head of state is in the forefront as far as the African Continental Free Trade Area Agreement is concerned. Madam Speaker, I lead the delegation of this House to the African, Caribbean, Pacific, and the EU Parliament. And this agreement of the African Continental Free Trade Area took place in Rwanda at the time when we were in our ACP-EU parliamentary session. Madam Speaker, I want to say it was so exciting for the African groups, and it was, in fact, highly supported by the Caribbean, the Pacific, and also the EU, that this is the way Africa should go. And this is very important, because I think the fragmentation of Africa has reduced the impact that Africa would have had in international activities, right from trade negotiations to any other relationship. So bringing together Africa and having a free trade is going to be very important. One of the other things that has been disturbing us as an ACB group is the cost of traveling between African states. The cost has been extremely prohibitive. You have somebody, Madam Speaker, starting from Senegal, West Africa, and coming to Kenya, but cannot come directly, has to go to Europe in order to come to Africa. But a free trade area of the African continent is going to stop this, because we'll be able to move freely, and we'll be able to move to have free airspace for our airlines, Kenya Airways included, and all the other airlines. So this is a very important step, and I feel proud that Kenya is in the forefront as far as this one is concerned. Madam Speaker, on the area of the Big Four, I again laud the President for the approach that he has given it, this in his speech. Madam Speaker, in the area of the Big Four, I want to concentrate on the agriculture sector, because I come from an agricultural county. We are producers of the food in this country. And I'm happy that the President noted, first and foremost, that agriculture is the largest employer in this country. That agriculture actually employs 60% of the total employees in this country. This means that agriculture must be looked at differently, because this is the sector that without which we will have a lot of unemployment. And if we don't promote agriculture, it is going to cost us both food security and economic insecurity. Because the problem is that when people cannot be employed in the agricultural sector, this 60% will be around wondering what to do. And you know the easiest thing to do is for the devil to occupy their minds, and they go roam around robbing everybody else. So it is good that it was noted. Madam Speaker, I was also happy with the reforms going forward which the President proposed, and he stated very clearly that going forward, the reforms in the agriculture sector are going to be farmer-centric, and that they'll be focused on reducing the cost of food. This is extremely important. The cost of production in Kenya is prohibitive, and farmers currently, knowing that even the maize farmers that have been involved in through a report that came to this House, are not very sure how much they're going to plant this year, notwithstanding the fact that the rains have reduced. But they are asking themselves how much they can invest, money they don't have. They don't have any money. AFC loans they have had problems with those. Interest rates have been very high, and now they cannot even borrow from anybody, let alone the fact that banks cannot loan to these farmers. The reason being that even farmers who are aggregators, Madam Speaker, including aggregators from my own county in Moiben, were called cartels. They have not been paid, they have been taken to court, and they are moving in circles even when we know that they are extremely innocent. They never went to Uganda. We produced in this house the list of those who imported from Uganda. None of them was involved. We produced a list of those who imported from Zimbabwe, from Mexico, from outside. None of them was in that list. And yet, they are still being tortured. They're being tossed up and down. So I'm glad that the president wants the new reforms to pay attention to the farmer, to reduce the costs, and to be able to even add value. My call is that it is good sometimes when we have problems like we had last year and over the production and the problems that the cereals board had, that we actually look at the issues in a very sober manner and be able to rescue those who are suffering innocently. Because we have a lot of farmers who are suffering innocently as we are talking in this house, Madam Speaker. One of the other issues that came out of this was increasing agricultural value addition. Madam Speaker, value addition is what is helping people in the agricultural sector worldwide. The problem in Kenya is that we sell our produce raw. And when you sell your produce raw, including exporting tea that has not been packaged properly, and then when you go to the shelves, the Kenyan tea is called English breakfast tea, Earl Grey tea. Reasons, countries that do not have this produce are value adding, creating jobs for their people, and branding that which is ours. So value addition is very important, and we need to reach a point when this country will say enough is enough. Anything that has not been added value will not leave the country. This is very important, Madam Speaker, because even in the SCP that I sit, we talk about trade between Africa and Europe. And when we talk of trade between Africa and Europe, Europe is saying, we want you to export anything to us except arms. But you cannot export potatoes because they'll get spoiled on the way. But if we added value and converted the same potatoes into flour, because I lived in Canada where they import potatoes that have been ground and dried into flour, we would be able to export to any of these countries. So we need to add value, and I hope that the Minister of Agriculture will pay attention to the paragraphs that the President outlined and actually support the farmers to add value, notwithstanding the fact that this is a devolved function, and we're expecting our governors to also pick from what the President said and help the farmers to add value. Madam Speaker, the President also talked of offering incentives to farmers. This is what we said in our report. And I really hope that as the President has given the committee and the minister the leeway to come up with bold and transformative interventions to revive the agricultural sector and to make it sustainable, that they will read the recommendations that went through this House. Because the recommendations that went through this House will capture all these areas. The reduction of cost will be there. The issue of increasing agricultural value addition is there. Offering incentives. This House gave a lot of very strong recommendations. And I think if they really read this report, they should be able to add value to their own report and be able to actually give very bold and transformative interventions. One of the incentives that this House agreed unanimously on is the return of something called GMR. Madam Speaker, in the olden days, from independence in this country up to the 70s, and I was in the Ministry of Agriculture as an agricultural extension officer myself, farmers who lost crops because of nature, because of drought, and because of late planting like today, because a lot of dry planting has taken place, only God knows if we'll get the rain on time. If you lose your crop, at that time, there was something called guaranteed minimum return. The guaranteed minimum return, and I was on the ground when we were doing evaluation, is that when your crop has been planted and you don't get what you're supposed to get, government was supposed to compensate you. And for this reason, I'm really happy that there is, the president talked of a revolving fund for the coffee farmer. I am urging the president, and I hope he's listening to this, and I believe he's listening to this, that we need a revolving fund for the food sector. We need a revolving fund for the crop production sector. We need a revolving fund for the maize sector. The grain sector, and we recommend it again in this house, requires a revolving fund where farmers can borrow and return, not the kind of loan that we get from AFC. AFC has brought farmers to poverty. They have brought them to their knees, and there's nowhere the farmers are going if we are going to continue in the way that AFC has been doing. If we can get this something close to what we are working on for our coffee farmers, it should help the farmer come back to their feet. Gone are the days when farmers used to buy brand new tractors, brand new vehicles for themselves, brand new lorries. Now they're depending on middlemen because they cannot afford that. And it is, and you look at it and it's a shame because without these farmers, there is no food security. I really appreciate the fact that water pans are being encouraged for irrigation. But before irrigation, you also need to use the agricultural land that we have prudently and make sure that we protect our farmers. Madam Speaker, finally, many have talked about development versus security. Security is vital. We lost a beautiful girl in Moi University 2 days ago. It was extremely sad. We know our Senator Sagaja has given us a list of the number of ladies that we have lost. It is very important that this is investigated properly. And that even before that happens, we need to start talking to we need to pay attention to our institutions. We do not know where the young man who came to kill was in, whether they were university students before and they were friends in the universities, but we need to start protecting our youth. Because if this continues, Madam Speaker, we will lose our youth. We will lose a lot of youth. It is very important. I want to send my condolences to the family and to Moi University, which is in my county, for what happened, for this very dear life that we lost. But even as we send that, we need to ask ourselves more questions about how we can protect them. How can we protect them? The other day, Madam Speaker, we were told we were on an index that said Kenyans are among the happiest people. But recently, we are told that we are among the most depressed people. Those are things that we need to start searching. How did we shift from being the happiest to the most depressed? If we are now most depressed, we need to search those questions and ask ourselves. It is very important that our institutions have counselors, have chaplains, so that our youth can even know how to protect themselves. But beyond that, it looks like we need more than just the chaplaincy and the counseling. We may need to start training our young students on how to protect themselves. We need to raise them in a manner that they know how to protect themselves against both enemies, real enemies, and those unsuspecting enemies who are their friends and are able to take advantage of them. Because it is so sad that we lost a doctor in the making, somebody who was going to graduate only in a year and would have had a very good doctor in this country. With those remarks, Madam Speaker, I want to support.
I have no further requests, and I therefore call upon the mover to reply.
Madam Speaker, I want to thank all the senators who have made their contributions this evening and congratulate them for very innovative and ingenious suggestions that have come from different persons in this House. Madam Speaker, many senators have talked about the need for what the President said, the need for uniting the country, and particularly the role of sports, role of role models like Kipchoge, like the President did. And Madam Speaker, it is important also for us here to continue recognizing that the government of President Uhuru Kenyatta have done their best to support the sports sector. I know, I don't think it's an accident that we have our national team, Harambee Stars, playing Africa Cup of Nations over a very long period of time. I think it must go to the recognition of the fact that there was a lot of investment to it and incentives. And I remember the Deputy President promising on behalf of the government the young people being given 50 million shillings. And I'm happy that the government delivered that promise this week. And so if we can do so in all other sports sectors, this will be very, 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 very important. I am concerned that the rugby sevens team, which has really carried this country for a long period of time, at the moment is doing badly, and part of the reasons are attributed to the politics of the rugby union. And I hope that these issues can be sorted by Honorable Amina and the team that are in the sports sector. I also hope that we can continue investing in athletics because, as I said, we, most cases, reap where we do not sow because the training facilities do not meet the standards. The explanation given by government on the issue of stadiums not having been constructed was the fact that there was no consistent source of funds for that construction. I hope, Madam Speaker, that now that we have a lottery fund that was established with already having collected 2 billion shillings, that the construction will commence so that in these very remaining 3 years of President Uhuru Kenyatta, first they can deliver the medium-sized stadiums, including Kamarin Stadium in my county, Eldoret Stadium be completed, Kapsabet Stadium be completed, the one of Kisumu, the one of Mombasa, among others in this country. And I'm happy that the county government of Meru, working with national government, also completed theirs, and the county government of Kakamega did a very good Bugungu Stadium, a place where I have played myself. Madam Speaker, on the question of incentives and working with international community, I know I have seen a lot of people criticize the government for how it has been handling international relations, and former Minister of Foreign Affairs, Honorable Etangula, spoke at length about this. Madam Speaker, it must be recognized that even when the president, because I saw someone saying that why are we giving a dry port land for Uganda in Naivasha? Many people must recognize, Madam Speaker, that the part of the cargo, a big percentage of the cargo that is cleared in Mombasa port is destined to Uganda, then Rwanda, then Burundi, then also Congo. And it's important that when we give incentives to our partners, we must look at the bigger picture. The fact that they use our port, the fact that they will be using our SGR, that creates a lot of employment in the country, and that drives a lot of benefits to the economy of this country. And so some of these strategies, we just need to spend time to think through them and appreciate that the importance of regional integration. But I agree with him that we must do more, that our diplomacy must lead to more investment in places like Southern Sudan, where we invested a lot in terms of diplomacy and peace building. It must also be reflected in Somalia. We actually should not be even reported to be fighting with Somalia because it's a country that we've helped for a long period of time, and we bore the brunt of all the bad things that happen in this country because of our proximity to our neighbor. And having done everything we did to host also refugees in this country, particularly in Dadaab. And I therefore think that that is an area that we need to put more investment, and I believe the Foreign Affairs is doing everything possible. I think also we should invest more. I don't want to question the wisdom of appointments of ambassadors to various countries, but a lot of effort must be put in investing in hard negotiators and good diplomats that are going to spend a lot of time opening doors for Kenyans in the region, particularly when we have situations that we do where people have suspicions about a country that is doing better economically than the neighbors itself. It's important for us to have good diplomats that are able to do both soft and hard diplomacy. Madam Speaker, a lot also has been said about the Building Bridges initiative and the unity that is anticipated in this very important process that the President has addressed, and saying there is no turning back in uniting the country. Of course, there is no turning back in uniting the country. Of course, I don't agree with people like Senator Ongeri, who in his submission said that, you know, some busybodies are questioning the handshake and building bridges initiative. There is no busybody in this country. There is no even language for calling anyone busybody in this country. Because, and I've said, Kenyans must learn to live with criticism. Governments and institutions and processes and programs like the ones we have become better when you have people who can look at it from a different view. And Madam Speaker, that initiative called Building Bridges Initiative is good to the extent that every citizen of the Republic understands. Just the same way many Kenyans have said the NIMS program has not been understood by so many Kenyans. And as a result, you saw some people saying this number represents a demonic number. This number, this is meant to steal secrets from individuals and so forth. What's important for us is to ensure that everybody is involved in the process of Building Bridges initiative. But as long as it's going to be a process that is us versus them, as long as some people are still happy to say this thing is sacred and private. I speak to senators even here, and you know, on both sides of the political divide, nobody knows exactly what is the Building Bridges initiative. Nobody knows to the details that are required for a leader to explain to citizens where we are going with that initiative. And then sometimes when you get some people questioning it, they are told, you know, oh, this is, you should not involve yourself. This is an exclusive relationship of the President and the former Prime Minister. If it is exclusive, then let it be exclusive. But if it's for Kenya, it's important that all of us get involved. And my personal contribution to this information is that it must get out from the President and the former Prime Minister. It must get out from being personalized. It must get out from being in a cocoon, in a, you know, that the Building Bridges initiative are doing things that are not understood by Kenyans, so that when the product comes out, it's as good as the process. Because if the process is good, the product will have the legitimacy to be welcomed and accepted by the people of Kenya. And that process, it is important we start speaking, because if we don't say these things, we may not be able to go where we are going. For example, I saw, you know, my friend Honorable Mwaura, and he was here, I don't know if he's still here, suggesting that, you know, in this process of Building Bridges initiative, we should create, you know, more offices, executive offices, so that we can share among communities. And Madam Speaker, I know for sure, when they were saying we should create another 5 positions so that it can be shared among communities, your community was not in the mind of the Speaker. And I for sure, because we have 43 communities. When we talk about to be shared among communities positions, it always talks about the numerical, the communities that have the biggest number, you know, the Kikuyus, the Kalenjins, the Luyas, the Luos, and the Kambas at most. Now, if we start saying as a country we are going to create positions for communities, we are the ones who are perpetuating this narrative that this country can only be united if the big tribes can get satisfaction of some sort in government. But there is a narrative that young people of this country want to be perpetuated. This narrative that says that we must build a nation that will ensure that we must build a nation and institutions that when going forward, our political mobilization is not based on our communities, that you will not be judged by the community you come from, by the population of your community, by the second or the last name, or by, you know, who is your mother or who is your father. We should have a country like other countries in the world where a person from even the smallest communities will have an opportunity to lead. And if that narrative is going to be perpetuated, that unity of this country can only be achieved if communities and tribes, the big 5, yeah, you know, Madam Speaker, there should be no big 5 in this country, because a Kikuyu, Madam Speaker, who is suffering somewhere in Mukurweni, yeah, Madam Speaker, that one individual does not benefit from the collective numbers of the people of his community. He's just exactly as the same as a Luya somewhere in Avakolo, or a Marakwet somewhere in Tot, or, Madam Speaker, a Taita somewhere in Holili, Madam Speaker, on the border of Kenya to Tanzania. We must begin to appreciate that the conversation must be about how to better the economy of the country, how to make sure that competition in political competition is going to be based on issues, how to mobilize discussion and political competition should be about issues. No wonder many people may not appreciate this Building Bridges initiative, because to others, it's about creating positions. To others, it's about sanitizing, cleaning our political system, that even with the current constitutional order, there are so many things that we can do that unite the country. We must get out of this mentality as politicians that only see that until Senator Kamar is holding a particular position, that is the only time we will satisfy the nation and united. We must get out of it, because if we build a nation and constitution and institutions based on the individual, when that person that is not interested in that position or is no longer there, Madam Speaker, we will have a problem as a country, because we did a constitution that deals with individuals instead of institutions, and instead of dealing with issues that are meant for posterity. Madam Speaker, Senator Wetangula captures that very well when he said that we need to focus on the institutions, not friendships, not individual friendships. Because we've known in this country, all the top politicians in this country, former Prime Minister, the President, Deputy President, former Deputy Prime Minister Musalia Mudavadi, all of them, do you know, Madam Speaker, founded ODM, the party we know, together, through the same process. I didn't want to say your party because you are the Speaker, but indeed it's your party. And, Madam Speaker, and they were friends, and they moved around this country, and including former Vice President Kalonzo Musyoka. So, but you can see how they differ strongly. So, assuming that institutions are built around those gentlemen, ultimately, you find yourself in a situation where when they are no longer friends, the country is apart. When they become friends, the country becomes good. And we must find a formula that is beyond individual relationships of people. I know, Madam Speaker, that on the food security sector, Senator Kamara has made a very important, made a strong case of us investing in agriculture. And she's right. And of all people, she's made a very important case on that issue. And I think it's for us as a country we don't invest in our sports, but we want to benefit from it. We don't invest in our agriculture, but we pride ourselves that we are an agricultural country. It's important that in the food security conversation, agriculture be focused on in the manner in which it deserves. Because our conversation all the time is about handshake, about 2022, about things that are not integral to the problems we are dealing with. And every time we raise these issues, we are raising them because they are government technocrats from the ministry, from all departments, whose work every day must be to ensure that we make these departments of government become functional and become an answer. And even when you talk about irrigated agriculture, that agriculture based on irrigation, we must also be able to put the resources in these institutions and in these dams that we are building so that then the irrigation can be sustainable as a nation. I like what Senator Omogeni said, which echoes what I did when I was moving this motion, that we must continue fighting corruption. There is no debate about fighting corruption. There should be no turning back on the desire to fight corruption, but we must all admit and accept that that must be done within the law. And Senator Omogeni has spent a lot of time making a case for this very important point, and I know why. Because other than just being the former chair of the Anti-Corruption Commission, he is also an advocate of the High Court of Kenya with good standing, former chair of LSK, and also a senior counsel. And it's important that when these people speak, as I said, Senator Orengo himself spoke in court, that consistency must permeate every sector of our society so that we get results for what we fight. But we must not also use that as an excuse to say that when people are incompetent and in office, they just wait for due process. There is no due process for incompetence. There is also no due process, there is no need for due process where the president is satisfied that he is suspicious enough that a certain person is not qualified to hold office, either because he's corrupt or of ineptitude or as long as there is reasonable suspicion. That is why the power is given for the president to appoint and disappoint certain people. And for that reason, this conversation about also innocent until proven guilty does not mean that the hands of appointing authority are tied when it comes to making changes for purpose of strength. But that should not be making changes for purpose of delivery of services. But that should not mean that we as politicians and people of this republic should put pressure for punishment of individuals as if they don't have a right. That if I don't like the face of a certain minister, or if I am anticipating that if so-and-so is going to be removed, I'm going to get an opportunity, that I'm going to take that opportunity to try to fight people and create fictitious stories, what the president called pitchfork protests, so that then you get an opportunity to ascend to that position of office. That doesn't help because it's a vicious circle. You go through it and you go around it. Senator Sakaja made a very important case for our putting focus on our economy and small and medium-sized enterprises and that small business person. Madam Speaker, there is something that happened under this government that we must rethink. We must rethink the fight against what is called counterfeit goods that is done by people who have no capacity or qualification to carry on the fight. Madam Speaker, someone just wakes up in the morning, counterfeit, and I'm saying this because I was the founding board member of Anti-Counterfeit Agency. Counterfeits are intellectual property-related issues. And Madam Speaker, this pen could be written, made by BIC. For you to come and say it is not by BIC, it has been counterfeited, the owner of the intellectual property owner must have registered that intellectual property. Number two, must be able to come and prove that this water is not actually manufactured by Keringate. And Madam Speaker, to now come and punish traders in Nairobi, people in Nikogomba who are selling what we call hawking goods in the streets, and tell them that you are selling counterfeit goods, Madam Speaker. Intellectual property fights all over the world is about protection of rights of big companies. Now, if there is a huge company who has made profits of billions of money and is sitting somewhere in Shanghai, China, it has already sold all those padlocks. And then some other character in Isli makes some padlocks and rights made in Shanghai. Why do you punish that person who's going to make maybe 50,000 shillings or 100,000 shillings for an issue that is the complainant is not there, that person has not come to complain, the violation of that intellectual property is not intellectual property owned by any Kenyan. These are goods that are not manufactured anywhere in this country, because countries that are pursuing protection of intellectual property and do not want either generic goods or goods that are similar in nature to what they have manufactured are actually trying to protect the economy. What are you protecting when you have not manufactured anything? I would understand if you were to protect the avian company because their juice has been counterfeited by another person locally. I would understand if Keringate water is being counterfeited and you are going to protect it. But you want to tell me that clothes and some goods that are batteries that are not manufactured anywhere in this country that people are selling in the nation should not be a basis for us to say that we should punish small-scale sellers and traders in this country. Number two, it's important, like Honorable Sakaja talked about, the taxis, Taxify, all these, what do we call Uber and all that. That, Madam Speaker, we have a regime that deals with, because that is almost like e-commerce. You pay money, it automatically goes to another country. or repatriated to that country if it's going to be paid cash or so forth. We must first understand that this nation must adhere to what is required, what is called minimum wage. The reason why in the US, Senator Wetangula talked earlier about taxi driver there being able to fend for their families and save and invest is because they have minimum wage and minimum working hours. And those hours are adhered to. And there is enforcement under labor laws. For every person who does business in this country must sign a particular code of conduct that indicates that he must not allow their workers to work for more than this number of hours. And if they're going to work overtime, this is the amount of money that is going to be paid. And that those people are going to pay taxes and that they are going to be accountable to the country. If those values and principles of trade are not going to be adhered to, and which are also labor-related principles are not going to be adhered to, we are not going to go anywhere as a country. And I support Senator Sakaja's initiative and push, and I hope that some people say he brings a motion here. I don't want him to bring a motion. Madam Speaker, I would love that Senator Sakaja and his committee create a proper hearing of all the complainants that we have in this country, because some of the taxi drivers, and I saw, if you saw a thread on Twitter of some people being robbed in Kampala by Uber drivers and so forth, it's because they are operating now, their survival, some thugs have just decided, or some of them have gone to crime, to say that because they are not going to make a living based on the work they are doing, they are now robbing passengers and so forth. Even passenger security is not safe when they are operating in an environment or they are doing business that they're not happy with. It's like having a house girl in your house. You are paying them miserably. You are actually beating them. You are even sometimes denying them food. And then you leave them home with your children to cook food for you. I mean, honestly, it cannot be that you can be able to do that and expect that you will not be poisoned one of the days, or that your child will be safe when they're left in the hands of a house help that has been mistreated. So every time you mistreat a worker, those who are supposed to be served are going to suffer. And this nation is not going to be healthier if we are not going to deal with more important issues. Finally, is the question of security of this nation, and particularly for young people. There is a problem, Madam Speaker. I don't think I can stand here and profess that I can diagnose exactly what's the problem with young people. But there's a trouble. There is something that is troubling young people of this republic. The worst thing that we can say here is I think we have a problem with communication. We have a problem with social media. The pressure of society, even with communication, these relationships that are run on WhatsApp, Madam Speaker. You know, in the old days, and I'm sure Professor Kamar and yourself are good witnesses here, we are younger than yourself. In the old days, if you wanted to date somebody, you went the whole length to talk to them. It had to be a face-to-face conversation. And if you must communicate, it was a letter that went 2 weeks. Then you waited anticipatingly for another 2 weeks. But now there's a lot of communication that goes on WhatsApp here and there, instant messaging, and the relationship are so instant. They are like this. Before someone meets somebody, you are told they are already relating. And before long, they are already fighting. And before long, they killed each other. And Madam Speaker, there are multiple sources of the problems that we have in the country now. Some is, as I said, the social behavior. The other is about us as ourselves, our parenting, maybe because of the pressure that people have, we don't have more time to engage our children and to parent them. And even where we have the time, I'm sure your generation, you have done your job. But us who are in the younger generation have to be even trained on how to bring up children. I don't know how many people of my generation can confess that, you can take time to go for a training on how to bring up a child in this generation. And Madam Speaker, I've gone for those kind of trainings. And sometimes you think you know so much because we were brought up in a different setup. Some of us who were brought up in the village were brought up in a setup where everybody was in charge of us. The neighbor would beat you. The teacher was a strict teacher. Everybody, if you are a young person, you are still hanging around center, you were chased home. People would tell you, what are you doing here? Nobody would ever allow a child to be in a bar or even a hotel, forget about a bar, a hotel, after 6 o'clock, everybody will say, and there was, in the village, there was a general reporting mechanism where you meet a girl of a certain family, is still hanging around center in the evening, somebody has already gone to report at home that I found that girl here. But nowadays it's everyone for himself and God for us all. Everybody, doesn't want to care about the children of the neighbor, the family of the neighbor. So there is a lot of problem. In fact, even relationships, family relationships are not there anymore. People have broken their relationship with their parents, with their siblings. They no longer meet as a family. There is no support system. So when the stress comes in, just someone. If such a young man who committed the kind of crime that he did yesterday, because I've seen newspapers, and the newspapers were reporting that, he's a quiet guy, he doesn't drink, he doesn't smoke, and he's a quiet person, he was just coming to work and go home. Most likely that person didn't have support system. He didn't even have someone to talk to. But in the old days, and of course in places where you have support system, young men talked and said, my girlfriend is so and so. Yeah, we are doing well or we are not doing well. And sometimes you have that friend of yours tell them, ule msichana ameshaniruka. Yeah, she's about to leave me. And so the other man will tell you, no, relax. Don't worry. Be encouraged. We will try to talk to her. But nowadays, everybody just holds on to their problems and then gets their own personal solutions, commit suicide, or go and kill somebody. I mean, now, if you just look at the age of that young girl in Moi University and the age of that young man, Madam Speaker, there is absolutely no justification. No amount of justification can be given for as to the reason why that kind of heinous act happened. And it's not just there alone. You remember the lady in Rongo, the same was done. She was murdered, Madam Speaker, this is every day, I think, unreported cases are too many. And it's been worsened by, as I said, social media. Sometimes, because of this, most of these young people don't have time to engage face-to-face. WhatsApp has become the system of communication continuously. Nobody has time to talk to anybody, even at home. They're just like, I was just checking something a little bit here. I'm on Facebook, I'm on Twitter, I'm on WhatsApp, I'm on this one. People are not able to see each other eye to eye and talk. And as a result of that, Madam Speaker, society is getting wasted. What is the solution? I think some countries, by the way, have gone to the extent of establishing a minister for that job, for just family welfare, for social welfare. There must be a conversation around those issues. There must be someone who mobilizes the nation to have that conversation. If churches are going to help us, to talk to those churches, to somebody where, ministers of churches and mosques and, religious leaders can be able to sit down and we have this conversation. Teachers are the best people to solve that problem. But we must first attend to the teachers before they can attend to our students. And so these are some of the areas that we need to incorporate, either in our curriculum, in our well-being of our country. We must have a conversation around these issues, and we must be able to deal with the problems that are affecting this nation. Because it's not just enough to go law enforcement. We must have preventive measures that make the country. If I would say, what is the state of the nation today, like the president made a state of the nation, I think we are like Prophet Joel said in I think chapter 2 of Joel, that we are in the valley of indecision or valley of decision. We're a country that are now asking ourselves, should we go east or west? Should we proceed towards north or we go to south? And that's why you hear all this conversation about we want building bridges initiative, but how will it look like? We want to fight corruption, but which way should we do? We want to address social misfits in the society, but using which mechanism? This valley of indecision, as a country that tells itself that we are a God-fearing nation, we must start to reflect and radiate what the scripture says. We must be the light and the salt of the world. And that can only happen if we are going to walk the talk in the things that we always profess as a nation that calls itself a nation that is religious. Thank you, Madam Speaker. I beg to move and say that and congratulate the President for doing what he did, and insist that the reports that are being presented should be given to the relevant committees, and in their in their own way, should look for a mechanism that this Senate can engage further on the issues that have been raised by the President. I beg to move.
Honorable Senators, this being a matter that does not affect counties, I therefore proceed to put the question that pursuant to Standing Order 24.6, the thanks of the Senate be recorded for the exposition of public policy contained in the address of His Excellency the President, delivered on Thursday, 4th April 2019, and further the Senate notes the following reports submitted by His Excellency the President in fulfillment of Articles 132(1)(c) and 247 of the Constitution, laid on the table of the House on Tuesday, 9th April 2019, being 1, 6th annual report on the measures taken and progress achieved in the realization of national values and principles of governance. 2, 6th annual report on progress made in fulfilling the international obligations of the Republic of Kenya. And 3, 6th annual report to Parliament on the state of the national security. As many as of that opinion say aye. Aye. As many as of the contrary opinion say nay. The ayes have it. Next order. Senator Sakaja, you may approach so that we agree on your motion. Honorable Senators, for the convenience of the House, I am now going to defer orders 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, and 16. Next order.
Order number 17, motion.
Senate Majority Leader.
Honorable Speaker, I beg to move the motion that pursuant to Standing Order 28 and 29, the Senate do adjourn until Tuesday, 14th May 2019. Madam Speaker, I've spoken a lot this afternoon. The reason why we are adjourning now is, one, is because the calendar says we should adjourn. Number two is because we have a conference next week, which is a legislative summit taking place in Kisumu. And all senators have been encouraged to go to Kisumu for that legislative summit. And Madam Speaker, I believe that we are going to have a very fruitful engagement with our colleagues in the county assemblies as we think through what has happened the last 1 year insofar as matters devolution are concerned, but also chart the way forward insofar as our engagement with the county assemblies, particularly when it comes to our oversight responsibility, which is concurrent, which we have a concurrent jurisdiction insofar as oversight is concerned. So it's basically I want to wish senators good recess as they go and engage their citizens. After next week's conference, we'll spend more time with our constituents to think through what we are planning for the next financial, for the next session, period when we come back from the session. And I'm sure that that period of time will also give us an opportunity to engage them on what's happening on the ground, but also come up with ideas that we can be able to prosecute in this House. Madam Speaker, I beg to move and ask Senator Wetangula to, is it secondable? Yes, to second.
Senator Wetangula.
Thank you, Speaker. I second the motion. This is a scheduled recess that is defined in our calendar as a recess that also coincides with an important event that the last Senate created to bring together our colleagues from the assemblies as county assemblers to meet with the Senate and engage in day-to-day benchmarking and sharing experiences on how to carry out oversight, legislation, and representation activities in their comparable jurisdictions. So as we recess today for 2 weeks, 1 week of the recess is actually going to be a busy working week where we are going to the lakeside city of Kisumu to congregate with the MCAs from the whole country, numbering close to 1,600. This is going to be a major boost to Kisumu as a city. It's going to be a major boost to the conduct of business of the Senate. And I encourage colleagues from the Senate to not only go to Kisumu to engage MCAs from their counties, but also engage MCAs from other counties. We'll be meeting with speakers from assemblies. We'll be meeting with clerks from assemblies. It's going to be a major event that we have witnessed previously in Mombasa. As we recess, Madam Speaker, I'll just mention 2 things that the majority leader and the side he leads, which is government, must pay attention to. The rains have started. Farmers everywhere are anxiously asking where to get quality seeds, where to get fertilizer at affordable prices. And it is time that we ask the government, because this fertilizer they don't give the farmers for free. All the farmers are asking is, avail it to us, we will buy it. Bring it closer to us, we will buy it. Senator Margaret Kamara and I had the privilege of leading the team that was investigating the maize crisis in the country. And Madam Speaker, we were shocked in Kisii to find certified seeds from a seed company licensed by the government has sold seeds to farmers in Kisii that recorded 100% germination failure. 100% germination failure. We need to pay attention to our farmers. They're the ones who feed this country. 78% of the workforce of this country is in the agricultural sector. If we let farming go the way it's going, then this country is going to have serious problems. Not only will we be unable to feed ourselves, but we will be unable to control the influx of young people to urban centers, to cities, with a hope that they're going to get jobs. Secondly, Madam Speaker, I want to encourage the government, like we have said many times before, to relentlessly wage the war against corruption in the country in a fair manner, in a manner that gives due process to everybody, and in a manner that restores dignity to the manner in which we run our public affairs in this country. Thirdly, Madam Speaker, I want to also bring to the attention of the majority leader that there is money that has been provided from donor countries in the Scandinavians, or from the Europeans, that targets about 8 counties that are described as water towers, which includes your own county of Elgeyo Marakwet. But I have been told reliably by the Council of Governors that this money appears to be disappearing at the Treasury. It is mixed up with other monies. Yes, and it's unlikely, if we do not follow it up, it may easily be veered into paying other government activities and therefore denying, one, the counties that are targeted, but more importantly, it's a tranche that's going to come for 3 years, 80 million per county per year for 3 years. So it's good to follow up so that we can make sure that this money is targeted for Bungoma, for Trans Nzoia, for Elgeyo Marakwet, Uasin Gishu, West Pokot, Kisii, Nandi, all those counties that are water towers, and I think Nyeri or one of the 2 in central Kenya is put to good use. Lastly, Madam Speaker, as we recess, we would also want to see the government rising to the occasion to tame the tide of reckless killings that are going on in our institutions. We are losing a lot of young people. We mentioned it here today, and I want to repeat that it is very dangerous. All of us are parents. We have our children, or we will have children in these institutions. And if the safety of our children is not guaranteed, it's very dangerous. If a minister of government can go around with a platoon of 20 security officers, surely the government can afford to put a police post in every university, properly equipped so that they can protect our young people when such eventualities happen. How do you expect a situation where, explain a situation where a person wielding an axe goes and cuts into pieces a student as if you are bisecting animal meat for human consumption? This is unacceptable. And I think government must deal with this matter firmly, decisively, and bring protection. Because parents will now start wondering whether it is any safe to take your children to university and to allow them to stay there. Yet the responsibility of government is to provide security for all of us. Madam Speaker, I want, with those few remarks, to second this motion and wish colleague senators a good 2-week recess, but more importantly, a resourceful and successful endeavor and retreat with our colleagues from the assemblies in Kisumu from Sunday. Thank you.
Honorable Senators, I now propose the question that pursuant to Standing Orders 28 and 29, the Senate do adjourn until Tuesday, 14th May 2019. Senator Sakaja Johnson Arthur.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I rise to support this motion that the House do adjourn pursuant to the provisions of our standing orders. I think, as has been said, this is procedural in terms of it being provided for in our Senate calendar. And indeed, it's a time that it coincides with us having this very important summit on legislation, the legislative summit, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I would like to urge my colleagues that even as we go to the legislative summit, I'm sure if we ask many, because we just had the Devolution summit, what actionable outcomes came out of the Devolution summit that is heavily funded by taxpayers, that there was a show of a lot of opulence and a lot of fanfare and glitz, but at the end of the day, was it just a talk shop? Was there some learning that happened? Madam Speaker, I'll be very, very sad and remiss if we come back to this House after the legislative summit and we have not agreed on or moved, or made some moves towards strengthening devolution, and number two, strengthening the relationship between this House and the county assemblies, Madam Speaker. There must be some value for the money that taxpayers are paying for this legislative summit, Madam Speaker. I think it's an opportunity for us to really have candid conversations. I hope the sessions are going to be interactive. And even before we go to those sessions, some preparatory work has been done, and I'm glad we have a steering committee. Some preparatory work has been done such that when we come back, Madam Speaker, it is very clear to each and every senator what the impact of that legislative summit has been, and to the thousands of MCAs who are out there, who are the primary, the most basic unit and defenders of devolution are our members of county assembly. As Senator Wetangula said, I think it will be good for us to think beyond just our MCAs and look at other counties and be able to learn what challenges there are. If we cannot defend our counties, Madam Speaker, there's a lot of, if you look at the audit reports that are coming out, there's a lot of theft, there's a lot of corruption, but it's because the primary oversight function by county assemblies has not been as strong as envisaged in our constitution. If we not defend and support them to do the primary work, Madam Speaker, a lot of our secondary level oversight will just be done in vain, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, as we go for recess, where is the mind of the Kenyan person, Madam Speaker. What is going through the hearts and minds of Kenyan people? Number one, it's been a tough time for many parts of this country because of the hunger. Madam Speaker, my county is not a pastoralist county, it's not an agricultural county, but it is a county that is worst hit when there is no food. Because, Madam Speaker, urban poverty goes to the core. Nairobi, in Swahili we say, ni shamba ya mawe. If you do not have food in Nairobi, Madam Speaker, you have no food. There is no garden at the back where you will get some greens. There is no neighbor who will give you a tin of maize. It is bad, Madam Speaker. And Kenyans are asking themselves, why is it that in this country, the rains are coming now, but they'll come as a surprise? We're not ready for the rains. The drainages need to be unclogged. Water harvesting needs to be done. But now we'll be crying floods, floods, floods. After that, drought again as a surprise. In the 21st century, we're still depending on rain-fed agriculture. We are still getting food donations from countries that are water scarce, like Egypt and Israel. Madam Speaker, shame on us all. I hope that this last period of drought and famine, because it has caused a lot of insecurity even. The other day we were in Senator Maruma's county. The insecurity there is not about herders, it's about drought, search for pasture. You know, the interaction between the farmers and those who are herding livestock, Madam Speaker, has caused untold agony in this country. So let it not be that hunger catches us as a surprise again, that the rains catch us as a surprise again, or that the lack of rain catches us as a surprise. Our meteorological department is one of the best on the continent, but the advice is just maybe pushed to the shelves in the ministry. Madam Speaker, as we move to this recess, I pray that the committees who have work to do will continue to do them. As of today and in the weeks to come, thousands of residents in my county, Madam Speaker, especially along Eastlands, do not know if they'll find their homes the next day because of the demolitions that have been going on. From Choka area in Mihango, and I brought a motion here, to Kasarani, Buruburu Farm, Madam Speaker, all the way to Kayole, and down that, because of what we are calling Okoa Laini. We have such government policies. Of course, it's important to safeguard the power lines and the lives of those who are there. And I've told Nairobians, if you're staying under a power line, I will not defend you. But I will not also defend the inhumane eviction. But those who are beyond, Madam Speaker, there are those who are 40 meters beyond the lines, 35 meters beyond the lines. You can imagine what it feels to come home and you and your child are standing outside what used to be your home that you've worked so hard for and gotten a mortgage for. Madam Speaker, I pray that the committees charged with this will take time, even during the recess, to address this matter. There's a question I brought to this House, Madam Speaker, on the status, the legal status and constitutional status of Nairobi County without a deputy, without substantive office holders. I hope during this recess it be looked upon, Madam Speaker, so that we can make sure that we're properly constituted and all of those other issues that we brought here time and time again. And as I finish, Madam Speaker, I want to thank senators for the support I have had on the issues raised on our young people in this country. Our young people, the level of unemployment is so high, and every time they take to look for a job, they are being oppressed, they are being harassed, and they are being fought. I've spoken about border drivers, Madam Speaker. Riders. I've spoken about Uber drivers, Madam Speaker. I've spoken about the level to which our young people, whether it's hawkers, the small traders, the ones who are being told that what they're selling is counterfeit, they're looking for some hope from this House. So even as you fight corruption, let us not fight our people. Let us not fight these young people, Madam Speaker. And I hope that those issues will be addressed and brought, and I agree with the leader of majority. It is not going to be a motion on our part. We're going to bring stakeholders together, the Ministry of Transport, the Competition Authority, Finance Ministry, because we must get to the bottom of those issues. So I wish members a lovely recess. It's a bit of a long one. It's a month. As we go out to our counties, let's not just go and talk to our people in our counties. Let's take time and listen, Madam Speaker. As we're preparing to start the oversight fund and oversight work by senators as planned, let us listen. You'll find some of the most beautiful and sterling ideas on how to actually oversight and what is going on in the counties belongs to the people. So I intend to spend a lot of time in the 17 constituencies of Nairobi, in the 85 wards, just listening to my people and knowing what it is that we can do to be able to serve them better and for them to feel much stronger what the function of this House is, Madam Speaker. Thank you very much and wish you a blessed recess.
Senator Kamal Margaret.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I want to join my colleagues in supporting this motion of adjournment. And as we adjourn, I want to wish my colleagues all the best, wish them well, and I believe they're going to have a very, very active session with the people, the constituents that elected them. Firstly, I'm very grateful that we are going to start with the retreat in Kisumu, the summit, legislative summit, where we'll be interacting with our MCAs. Madam Speaker, one of the greatest expectations of the MCAs currently is the Ward Development Fund, and I'm glad that we finished the bill that touches on the Ward Development Fund. We shall be able to interact, to discuss, and to pick out the issues. This bill is a very important one, is a very important one, not just for the MCAs, but for all of us who believe in devolution, and especially this House being the custodian and, of devolution. It is very, very important that we start looking at how development trickles to the ward. MCAs have complained now and again that there is imbalance in the So it is good that we'll be with our constituents, our farmers, and we'll be able to encourage them, even in these difficult times, that they don't have enough resources and they don't have enough, they don't have fertilizer, they don't have seeds, they don't have enough, but we'll be able to be together and to encourage one another on how we should go forward in this sector. Madam Speaker, I don't want to add any much more, but to wish all colleagues and yourself, Madam Speaker, all the best in this recess and God's presence in everything that we undertake. Thank you, I support.
I see no further requests. Order, Senators. Pursuant to Standing Order 28 and 29, the House therefore stands adjourned to Tuesday, 14th May 2019 at 2:30 p.m.